revised from August 30th to Tuesday, September 4th. We will be meeting on Tuesdays going forward. For those of you that are used to the Thursday meetings, they will be on Tuesdays. First and third Tuesday of the month? Is that the way we have it?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Quorum check. We have a full quorum. Must have wanted to get out into the AC. CPA, we did not have a meeting.
Trails Committee meets next week.
Trails is next week. Open Space, I have no. And Lakes Advisory, we don't have anything from them. Maybe we can get a Lakes Advisory member now that, because they'll be at a different time. Yeah. So, you want to approve the minutes, or how do you want to go?
Actually, if
Have Kevin come up.
Kevin can come up
Kevin?
and talk about their proposal.
Okay.
This mic or?
Doesn't matter.
All right, I'll stand.
Just introduce yourself and.
Hi, I'm Kevin Filchek. I'm the Economic Development and Tourism Coordinator for the town. I also serve as the Emergency Management Coordinator for the town. But today I'm in my Economic Development capacity, asking for, or I guess I'm notifying the committee of an event we have coming up, first ever community bonfire, which will happen at the host grounds. It's that blue dot right on the beach. Given its proximity to the lake and the fact that we'll be burning, we just wanted to notify you of the event. We have discussed this site with the fire chief. He is comfortable with it because it is ideal for him so he can get his fire apparatus close enough to it so that if there's an issue, he can mitigate it quickly. But again, we wanted to notify you of it, and if you had any issues, I'm here to address any of those questions.
The prior bonfires were out on the point. This is the host, right?
Correct.
You mean out here?
Yeah, they're right out here.
Out there.
Yep.
Maybe they have a wedding going on there or something?
No, the reason we chose that site was, A, it's sandy, so from a fire perspective, there's no fuel around it.
Yeah.
So that kind of creates a nice safety factor. In addition, the nice benefit to that site is it's if you have the bonfire there right along the side, the west side of that peninsula, you can see the fire from it. So people, even if they're not directly on the beach, they'll still be able to see the fire and enjoy it, even from a distance.
What distance from the lake will it be?
The
Looks like it's in the lake.
Microsoft Paint isn't very helpful in this situation, but no, it would be very close. It would be close. If you had a distance you'd like us to keep it at, we can certainly work within that. But apart from that, the only issue is there's some posts for like a volleyball net, so we're trying to avoid burning those. But it would be between that and the actual water line.
So it won't be further toward the, it'll be in front of the building. Yeah, I'd like to see some distance. I'd like.
Do you have a particular footage you'd like?
No. Anybody have an opinion on footage?
I like it being in the sand.
In the sand is good, yeah, but touching the lake is not.
We won't have it touch the lake. We'll give you a buffer. But if you had a distance that I could tell.
Yeah, 10 feet.
10 feet?
Yeah.
He's the emergency management coordinator for the town.
I'm not worried about an emergency. I'm worried about damaging the lake. This has nothing to do with emergency.
But isn't the lake gonna put the fire out if the fire goes to the lake?
Yeah, and if it's 10 feet away from it.
I'm just
The
thinking
soot
that
and
that's
cinder and-
it's a terribly arbitrary number because we have no idea what a good number would be.
Well, 0 is not a good number.
I would agree with that.
You know, and when they put it out with a hose, where's it gonna go?
He's the emergency manager.
I know, he's emergency. He didn't say anything about, environment.
Oh, this is gonna be a tough meeting.
So what we can do, how about this? If we'll put some distance between the water line and the fire. I will, because again, we have to work within what's the existing, what's on the water line or what's
Right.
there with the
post.
Yeah, the posts.
Yeah.
So again, we're trying to also put it in a place where it's not too close to the Oxhead Tavern and the outside dining there, because obviously we don't want to put it right there because building right
Smoke.
there.
Right.
So we can try to work within that. And
Yeah,
go from there.
we really would not like to see soot and cinder in the lake.
Understood.
Yeah. Anybody?
So how wide is the beach there? I've been
Yeah.
there, but I just can't.
Yeah.
It's not much more than 15 feet or so. I mean, it's a narrow beach.
It's not a huge beach. I
You have an
think
idea how wide it is?
I used it. I did it on GIS today, and
Right.
from the point that I'm worried about to the water line was like 20 something feet, I believe. But
Where are those posts that you're trying to avoid?
you can see it on the GIS. So that's not it.
No, I know, I just put Main Street in where. That's Burgess School Road, the host is here.
Yeah.
It's in
Yeah.
the
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the beach.
Here's the beach.
You can kind of see the outline of what I'm talking about.
Oh, right here? Is there
Yeah, I
something
think that's
there?
the post.
Yeah, there's a tree,
Yeah.
it's about 60 feet.
60 feet total?
So if you just go off in the direction where the pointer is, away from those posts.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that 60 feet brings you right to the back of,
Again, if I could just cut in here. So
that's a dining
yeah,
area.
this is the dining area right here. So the bar, I believe this is the bar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then you have this. So off of the chief is going to put it where off of this little exit off of the deck over is going to be our. We're not going to allow any patrons to go farther than that. So we could put, if we put the fire farther in the center, because again, if we bring it more towards the ox head from our location, we're going to be in the middle of that post. So we're going to basically set that on fire too, which is not ideal for us. So if we move it out, we'd actually have to push it farther up the beach, which would change our plans a little bit. So we can, between the post and there, we can,
I think about 30 feet to
yeah,
the
we can put it
post.
square in the middle. And that way we give you your 10-foot buffer and we'd be fine.
Let's do that.
All right.
All right?
I'm fine with a 10-foot buffer.
10-foot
And-
buffer?
And also, I'd like to have them burn the sand before they start putting the fire out. If they, unless they're
Burn-
just gonna
you
let it.
wanna, don't follow. You
I don't want them washing the soot and the remnants of the fire into the lake.
Okay. All right.
Anybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're gonna put it out,
Yeah.
don't hose it into the lake, do
Yeah.
it
Right.
outside.
Been there, done that.
We'll make it work.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Congratulations, sounds
Thank-
like a good deal.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right.
Do you want to do the approval of the minutes?
Yes, David, you want to propose a,
I would make a motion that we approve the minutes of our August meeting as revised.
where were we revised?
There were a couple of wording changes, that's all.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All seconds, all in favor?
I wasn't here, so I
Okay,
can't vote.
yeah, thought you were gonna say, we need some discussion. on that. I said, oh, damn.
One abstention.
Yeah, that's David.
All right, we did have one walk-in, which I didn't get a confirmation that they were coming. This person came in a couple weeks ago, and I suggested they come in. They were supposed to come in the winter, and they didn't, but I don't think they're coming in, so,
8 Birch,
yeah, we'll cross that off.
all right, so the minutes, 8
Um,
Birch.
We can do it real quickly. We have two small tree removals. This one is 70 South Shore, very dead hemlock. Let me turn that.
It's already laying down.
Yeah. So, it's on South Pond. It's over 100 feet away. It's dead hemlock right next to the power lines, on a steep slope. I don't recommend,
Right.
any replacement, so I would approve.
Anybody have any questions on that? Not gonna stump it, right?
Correct. Yeah, we put that disclosure in all the
All
tree
right, okay,
removals.
just
Unless they
wanna-
ask for
yeah.
it, there's no, stumping or grinding
I just wanted
with
to say
these
something
approvals.
that sounded intelligent.
Okay.
you know.
We'll let you have that one.
Very good, Mr. Chairman.
Good. What else?
We need to vote
We have
on it.
another tree.
All in favor?
Another tree removal for 5 Cooper Road. Now, this one is multiple trees, and I've talked to them already. Joe Kowalski went out there today, and he stopped in. He's going to put a report together. The original proposal came in, there were 6 trees, 1 dead elm, and some declining oaks and a maple tree. Why are you looking at me like that?
One dead elm?
Yeah, I thought it was an ash tree. Joe said it was an elm tree. But they're going to put together a report. They're going to come back and I think only ask for removal of 1 versus there was 5 additional trees. So there's 1 dead tree, which is fine to come out. I can show you a picture of it if you need to see it. They're going to come back pruning a few and removal of 1 severely declining tree. It's not dead yet. But we'll get that report and we can proceed from there. So I would just say at this time, I would recommend, since they're moving forward with that already, that we just issue a letter that we discussed it. I'll show you the dead tree and the other ones if you want to see it. Maybe give them permission at this point for
They're
the
gonna
1 tree.
come
and
back anyway?
With additional information. Yep.
Question for the committee. Do they still have to take elm when they take it down and dispose of it?
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
No, ash they do, not elm.
Okay. So, all right.
All right.
Yep.
The scientists have made a presumption that if the elm made it this long, it's disease-free.
I don't know if you guys saw, I think I forwarded that email to you that the emerald ash borer was found in Sturbridge now. That'll be presented to the Board of Selectmen tomorrow.
That's the one that has to be disposed of.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. All right.
Did you see the numbers of ash that we have even on town property? That Tom
No.
put in an email?
Yeah,
Holy smokes. Well over 100. I don't remember the number, but it was up there.
there's a very high percentage of trees we're gonna lose in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Something like 20%.
Is there any commercial use for ash other than just chipping it up? I mean, do they actually void it?
Something made out of ash. Not-
What?
In Worcester, they had to cart it away.
What?
Baseball bats are made out of ash, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Send it down to Louisville.
Yeah, with the borer.
Yeah.
What's-
That's gotta be a different ash than the one we have up here, huh? Interesting. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to digress, but, so they're coming back, right?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
All right. We're ready for, no, we're not, we got
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
I don't have anything for 2 minutes.
I could read the opening statement really slowly.
Yes. That's a great idea.
In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area and/or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaws and associated regulations.
Slow down, we have 1 more minute.
Yes. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to opening the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. These items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any of the visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're right on time. 6:15, notice of intent, DEP file number 300-1023, 42 Champeau Road, Sullivan J. Construction, to a single-family house represented by Summit Engineering and Survey, Inc. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Steve Brissett from Summit Engineering.
I represent Jean Sullivan and her son Doug. I think you guys met Doug on the site walk. They're looking to build a house for Doug out here on this site. Now,
I just want to add that Steve already gave us the legal tear sheet and the butter notification, so we already have that, so you can proceed.
The existing site is a 2-acre site that is fairly close to the Brimfield Sturbridge line along Shampoo Road, north being straight up here, Shampoo Road. This property all around here is still owned by his mother, and this property over here has recently been developed by another party over in Brimfield. What exists on the property is a fairly large wetland system that parallels Shampoo Road all the way down around here. There's an intermittent stream in the back of the property over here. On the site, there exists a driveway, cart road, cart path, logging road, whatever you want to call it. Been there for a long time. I went on to Google Earth, and back in the, like, 1980 or so, this road was here, going in through here. This building was here. There was a series of trailers and campers and all kinds of things in there. You can look on the historical thing. And I think this excavation over here that we're proposing the foundation in was actually done somewhere around 2000. I didn't see it in the 1998, but I saw it in the 2003. And this whole thing was pretty much a field all through here. Very little vegetation, as you noticed when we were out there the other day. I mean, this scrub is pretty high all over the place. But nonetheless, so what we're proposing is we want to keep the driveway on the existing cart path, right up to where it approaches to where the house is. There is an existing excavation here for a foundation that was, again, done somewhere around 2000. We plan the house to sit right in that same excavation. I'm going to take out all the understory and sapling growth that has occurred over the last 15 or so years there. This little building right here, Doug wanted to save this, but just in the way the site was and the least amount of disturbance, he found it was best. Let's just get rid of it and, put his garage in place of it. There's a deck off here in the back. There's an existing well up here in the wetland. This wetland actually has been adjusted since the site visit. I think Scott and Becky discussed it extensively, and we just extended the flags. I mean, whatever it takes, it doesn't really matter that much to the whole project. The area up here on the top of the hill where the house is proposed is already been disturbed soils, again, back in the 1990s, 80s, somewhere around there. There's a bank cut over here. So, I mean, trying to perk up here was kind of difficult. There was tight soils because all the loose stuff was already gone. So we had to perk way down over here in the back. This is where we found some virgin soils, some virgin conditions to be able to get the septic system in here. So the septic's within the 100-foot buffer. It's outside the 50-foot buffer. There's a little bit of slope grading. If Becky could pan up a little bit, you could see the grading. We got a little bit of slope grading going in here. What we plan to do is put a roll of boulders here within the 50-foot so that it kind of permanently demarks where that limit of work is extended to be because of the brook that's down below here. We have erosion control barrier all the way up and around. We extended it slightly from the original plan. This is actually a little revised plan to show the boulders and stuff that we discussed on the sidewalk. I revised this work limit a little bit because there's a pile of topsoil here that probably came off of that hill before they dug the hole. And I'm sure he doesn't want to leave it there, so it'll probably be used within the construction of this site. I mean, at a minimum, if the soil's no good, it'll be part of this slope fill that's going to go in behind the house. There's an existing utility pole out here in the front. We're going to go underground from that pole. Actually, it's right over here. There's an overhead wire to here. There's actually a temporary meter right here, and we're just going to trench right over to the house. There's an existing tree line that we looked at out in the field that's going to be our limited disturbance as we head out to Shampoo Road. And then the Towa slope along here is our limit as far as the site development goes. I don't know what other questions you may have, but I leave it up to the board.
Becky?
Great. I don't see any major concerns with the project. So after our site walk, they did go back out. They did delineate that area and looked at it. I sent you the correspondence so you could review that. Most of the work, as Steve said, is within previous disturbed footprint from the garage and that, when they cleared it for that development back in 2000 or so. Most of the work is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone as well. The driveway is close, but it's within that existing cart path. So if you kept it there, it's gonna limit the disturbance on the other side. So I wouldn't anticipate a concern with keeping that there. We had asked about the boulders being back there because of about 50 feet from the intermittent stream back there, to keep that as a reminder of the limit of work, so that way, you know, that whole back area doesn't turn into lawn someday. So I'm happy to see that included.
You said within, though. Do you mean at the 50-foot line? You said within?
Well, the toe of that slope extends slightly within the 50.
Yeah.
So we're
50's
just going along the toe of that slope.
50's here, so we just kind of asked them to put it at the toe of the limit of work.
I mean, we can definitely put it right at the toe of the slope. I mean, I just figured if they're gonna try to mow that slope, you know, on the side slope, you got a boulder sitting right there when you're riding lawnmower, you know, give it a little bit of space. That's my only consideration about leaving.
Well, I'd like
the space.
to protect the 50-foot buffer zone. That would seem to me if you put it at the toe of the slope. Just another area that we're not mowing.
True, I agree.
Yeah.
So then why don't we put the boulders at the top of the slope, and, you know?
No, that's-
So, you know, I mean, it's.
You know. I'll be satisfied with the toe.
Fair enough.
Okay, those are my comments.
What, any chance of not having grass that would be mowed there? If you've got an issue?
Sure, I mean, if the proponent, the applicant wishes to just landscape, mulch, and juniper that hillside, I mean, that's always an option. And you just gotta remember, root systems and septic systems, they don't go together very well. You know, grass and keeping this stuff down is a better option.
What's the slope? 3 to 1?
Yeah, it's a 3 to 1.
Yeah.
Very easily maintained.
I like Ed's idea. Push those boulders right up to the 50. And if he has a difficult time in mowing it, maybe he'll leave it alone, so there'll be an additional small buffer.
I don't, so do you want me to actually move this slope back too? I'd have to do
Well,
like an
you're out there
impervious
anyway.
barrier or something. You know,
We try to protect the 50-foot buffer zone as much as we can.
I understand.
And one of the concerns that we have, including in this area, which already has sections of it that are wet, is that with the increased amounts of rainfall we've been getting, we get more panicky about that 50-foot area than we ever have in the past. So whatever you can do to keep the boulders out of the 50, but at the same time be some sort of memorializing of the 50-foot area?
Well, I mean, obviously, this grading can be done, and that boulder line can be brought up onto that slope right there.
I think it would be really good if you did that,
Yeah.
frankly.
If that's where you'd like to see it outside
Yeah.
50, that's not an issue. We can definitely work with that.
Yep. Okay, good.
Paul?
I have no problems with it, it's fine.
Yeah, fine.
David?
Oh, I'm fine.
Yep, I agree with the comment.
Yeah, I'm fine with it too.
Let me ask an unrelated question that's related. When you did your fact-finding historical search, did you get an impression that on Gene's property or on the property to the right-hand side, that at one time the lake was much higher than it is now, like before the dam was put in? Could the lake have been up that high and that's why all the trailers, et cetera, were there?
No.
No?
No, I didn't find that.
So you didn't find that much?
I mean, I know, because I live on that lake, is that lake body now is much higher than it ever was.
Oh, okay.
Because there's some properties up off of the old camp road, off of Colette.
Oh,
You
okay.
go down there, and there's literally a guy's waterfront that's 3 feet underwater. There's the old retaining wall, there's this fire pit, there's stairs that go down, and that's all underwater,
Okay.
so, yeah.
So what do you think, when do you think the change occurred
With the core.
with the Corps? Because
Yeah.
Yeah, when they put their
The
dam
dam.
in
The
the
last-
69,
40 years anyway, you could walk right at the pike, you could walk that road in. And you pretty much can now, it hasn't changed.
Yeah, but there's always a little bit of a low spot right there.
Oh, yeah,
at the
no, I'm
very
not
end.
saying, I'm not saying, and I'm not saying that it didn't get some water in there at times too, but it never deviated from that road very much.
Right, yeah, no.
So,
A suggestion that we'll need the committee to agree to would be, you don't have to revise that plan and have him have to pay for a whole new plan.
Okay.
You could decide where you're gonna put the rocks, draw it in and sign it, and we could approve of that.
yeah.
Okay.
Instead of the additional expense of a whole new plan for the sake of moving some
No
boulders.
problem doing that at all.
All right, do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Wait,
Well, wait a minute, yeah.
for
no,
public comment?
Public comments, anybody?
Oh,
Okay.
come on, guys. This is an easy one, somebody speak up.
I think it's a great plan.
I should have said unbiased.
Yeah.
Too late, it's in the record.
All right, so, all in favor? Okay, now, do I-
I'd like to issue an order of conditions under the Mass Wetland Protection Act and Town of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw, which Becky will be creating.
Yeah.
And I need a second.
I'll second.
discussion? I'd like to make the comment that the wetland delineation was iffy. So although we're using, I think we're using it safely. I don't sign my name to the delineation as it exactly sits on the paper.
Yeah, they're not asking for approval of the delineation as
Okay,
part of
alright.
this. This is just for the notice of intent for the construction of the house.
Good.
So we're not signing that we approve the delineation for any
Okay.
period of time or anything like that.
Good, then we can
So-
just put a note that, with that.
Okay.
In that vein, I was out there and I didn't see any benefit, looking at a little bit of, I won't call it slop, but a little bit of variation in that line. I didn't see any benefit of moving that driveway any farther away.
No, neither did I.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Just a comment.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify, do you want to see that revision drawn on the plan with it shifting a little bit, or just add that as a condition?
Well, that
thought
is
it was
on the
already-
plan.
yeah,
That
it's
plan
already
is-
on.
No, we're not gonna, yeah.
You know, as is?
Yeah, he
Just
already revised
clarifying.
the plan.
Yeah.
It's fine, okay, I just want to make sure.
And
Okay.
those new
Yep.
flags were there, Becky.
Those
when we
additional
went out.
flags were added to that
Yep.
plan, the buffer zones were adjusted.
Yeah,
It's a closed meeting. We're not supposed to be hearing from the audience after we close it.
It was a point of order.
Point of order.
That's fine.
All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Yeah. Okay, we're almost at 6:30. You have anything else?
nope. Do you have the extra copies?
I do.
Okay.
Do you want me to?
To Frank and Andre. Frank.
All right, we're at 6:30. Abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, DEP file number 300-1017, continued from 6/17/18 and for
6/7.
14. Beg your pardon?
Sorry,
6/7,
6/7,
you're right,
yep.
yep, 6/7. 14 and 50 Dowdy Road. P. O'Connell, represented by Burton Engineering, confirming the extent of the wetland resource area. Okay.
Evening, Frank McCary with Burton Engineering, representing the applicant. And so we just got the third-party review.
Yep.
And I guess I would defer a third-party review to present their findings. We've already kind of presented what we thought the delineation should be, so I guess it would give BZA a chance to give their presentation of their findings as well, and then discuss from there, I think.
All right. Casey? How you doing?
Hi. Should I?
Yeah, sit up.
Okay, sure.
They don't have a microphone for some reason.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
You can take that one, it's portable.
Oh, you want, speaking to the microphone?
Yeah, because we've got
Being taped.
we record the meetings.
sorry about that.
Can I just put it on the table? Is that
Oh, yeah.
appropriate?
That's fine. And if it's not coming through loudly enough, he'll pop his head out of the door and yell at us.
Oh, really?
He won't yell at you, he'll yell
Wizard
at
of
us.
Oz in there?
Yeah, there was.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Casey Collins. I'm with GZA. I met, I think, all of you at the site walk. Were you there? I knew it. We had a site walk last week, and I presented my findings to the commission. Overall, my overall impression of the site, it's the northern parcel is extremely rugged. As I think I mentioned to most of you, the delineation, in my opinion, would have been extremely difficult due to the amount of down trees and just general inaccessibility of some areas. So of all the lines, wetland delineation lines that I did review, I would say the northern parcel is where I had the most personal discrepancies, and I reflect that in my report. And that's really just a summary of that one parcel. Does anyone have any questions before, or sort of that portion of that parcel?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Great. So I was asked to focus on the farm field that was right across from Dowdy Road, or, excuse me, right across from the southern parcel on Dowdy Road, where there was a culvert, or two culverts. And based on our findings, or our field investigations, Becky, if you want to scroll, or can I do that?
You have a pointer.
Pointer. Can I have a scroller?
I don't know if it'll, oh, don't do it. I don't know if it'll work from that far.
Really? Okay. Oh, that's okay.
Yeah,
You
will.
tell me where to
Yes,
go.
if you don't mind.
It has in the past. Try it.
This? No, she's talking about,
The scroll, yeah.
mouse.
Here, you can have your pointer back. I just needed the scroller.
do you want to try the mouse?
It's okay. I trust you. Okay.
You tell me where to go. This is the,
To the, on the northern parcel let's start in the farm field area. Keep going.
yeah, that's the,
Yeah,
That's
roughly
the
right there.
field, yeah.
Okay, so right here. So, in this general area is where both myself and my colleague Paul Davis, we're both soil scientists. This is where the focus of our delineation was, and our review of the delineation. Sort of the crux of this issue is of whether or not this area is jurisdictional would be based on if this area up here was A, connected and in some sort of hydraulic way, and B, whether it was a qualified as a bordering vegetated wetland. And neither of the reports that were presented to the commission addressed that. So when I went out and reviewed this, I did find evidence that this area could qualify as a bordering vegetated wetland. It was not formally delineated by myself, as that was not the purpose, but I would suggest to the commission that that area get additional review by the applicant's consultant. Because there was a prevalence of not only hydrophytic vegetation, but also hydric soils, and based on recorded evidence, that area does hold water. So with that being said, I did not find, I know that Mass DEP indicates that there may be some sort of drainage connection that drains down to that area. I was not able to locate any sort of bank or continuation of the hydric soils, but again, I think that that's something that the commission may want to ask for. That area warrants additional
you're talking about
investigation.
this right here that
Yes.
feeds down into
Yeah,
it?
Mass DEP has like a hydraulic connection that comes down, and then we
Yeah.
call this a wetland. But I was unable to find a strong hydraulic connection there, anything that indicated that there was evidence of flow. So, but like I said, it's just something that would warrant additional investigation. So, that being said, if this area qualifies as a bordering vegetated wetland, then the areas below or south of that that are connected via culvert, which is only this one as far as I could tell in the field, the one that is farthest to the west, that would make this all jurisdictional. So whether, and that would have to be defined whether or not those, some of those areas were jurisdictional as banked or were they jurisdictional as BBW. So where the culvert first comes out, it looks most to me that that is an indication of bank because there were no hydric soils there, but there was a defined channel, and whether or not, I know that there may have been some disturbance there, and I'm not entirely sure of the background of that site, but I would not say that this initial area would qualify as BBW, but I would say it qualifies as bank because it obviously conveys flow. As you move further south, you then start to pick up the more traditional evidence of bordering vegetated wetland. We observed, myself and my colleague Paul observed hydric soils, which I documented in my report, as and it's also a disturbed area. So we used section 5, or I believe it's chapter 5 of the Army Corps of Engineers Wetland Delineation Manual for delineating difficult wetland situations, as they're called. So that so with areas that have disturbed vegetation, if you have both evidence of hydrology and hydric soils, use your best professional judgment to whether or not you're going to call that area a wetland, and we did because it was saturated at the surface, and there was flow that was coming out of this culvert that was then feeding into this wetland. So to me, that area was a no-brainer. So separately is this culvert, the culvert that's more towards the east. Whether these first couple of flags here, I would say have potential to not be jurisdictional as bank. You don't pick up evidence of BBW until you're a few flags down in that area, but that also, similarly to the area across the street, that would depend on what is feeding that wetland. Is that all just coming from stormwater, or is it coming from a wetland upstream? And that's something that your consultant would need to review. I personally did not find any wetland upstream. I did walk uphill to where I thought the hydrologic break would be, and I didn't find anything. So that's why I said in my report, those first couple of flags are a little bit questionable. And then, but once you start to pick up the evidence of bordering vegetated wetland, which I think is around like A80, what did I say in there? A79, A82. Yeah, beginning BBW and bank at A79 and A82. So those are across from each other. That's where it's the bordering vegetated wetland and it's continuous with the rest of this area. So I generally, both myself and Paul Davis generally agreed with the ecotech delineation. I think there were areas where I thought I would disagree with it, but upon further investigation of the soils, I thought that a lot of it was pretty spot on. So I do have a couple of recommendations of moving flags here and there. Some of that may be based on when the flags were reset in the field, because some of them, it just didn't look right to me that nobody, especially like even up here, I think A81 and A80 were like reset in the middle of the path, and nobody in their right mind would, delineate it up there. So I think there might have been a miscommunication or just a misplacement of some of those flags when they were reset. So, but either way, I made notes of those, and some of those I think would need to be moved. Does anybody have any questions about that?
No.
Okay, so with that, I would say that I know that the commission was presented with multiple delineations of this area. I would recommend that the commission overall accept the ecotech delineation with the revisions.
Did you find any suspicion of a perched wetland when you're working on the northern part of this?
I did, yes, in this little area here.
Yep.
Absolutely. It was the soil was epicaturated, so it had evidence that it holds water at the top, and then
And then
it
this-
likely just gets sucked up by the plants as soon as the spring comes around and leaf out, so. But it, to me, or, based on the criteria, it holds water long enough to create evidence of saturated conditions.
Do you have
during the
any
growth.
indication as to what the total area, square footage wise, that perch wetland fits within?
That's a great question. I do not. No, I would not have any idea what the square footage
Would that be something that the applicant's wetland scientists could delineate for us?
They could, but, well, when they delineate I would suggest that you would want them to delineate the wetland, like go back there and delineate out that wetland, figure out whether there is a hydraulic connection that's going upslope. But if delineating the size of that, I don't know if that would really, it wouldn't, because of the hydraulic connection with the culvert, it would, I guess, disqualify it as a isolated land subject to flooding.
Oh, it would?
It wouldn't be an isolated land subject to flooding because
Okay.
of that hydraulic connection. So the size doesn't really, help or hurt you. It's a it's a BBW either way.
Okay.
Okay, so then the next, I think okay, perfect. Sure, let's just go this way.
Okay.
So, I did review mostly all the actually all the flags, and, this last one over here in this little, sort of cutout of this, of the parcel, my question to the consultants or, wetland scientists would be whether or not that could be classified as a potential vernal pool. When I was out there and looked at it, it had a lot of the characteristics to me. So, that's just a question that I would have for the wetland scientist. On the rest of this page, I did just have a couple of notes where I would move a flag here or there, based on the ecotech delineation, but I think that really mostly sums up that parcel. If you wanna go to the isolated, yeah, on the northern parcel. Okay, so as I mentioned, the northern parcel is just a hot mess. And I give credit to anybody that delineated that. So I found this, this isolated vegetated wetland, the way that I was actually able to find that was by following the delineation from north to south. And there is, in my opinion, a hydraulic connection that comes all the way up from the BD flags, and will connect to this E wetland. And then, in addition, I found other wetlands that are outside of this E wetland. So I would recommend that needs to be revisited. I would not say that this doesn't have the characteristics of a vernal pool to me. It looks like it holds standing water pretty much all the time. It's probably man-made, dug out. It's got a pipe in the middle of it, but that's really neither here nor there. But I would say that connection needs to be readdressed. I think that, if you want to, Becky, if you don't mind scrolling up to the first page. Yeah, so this is the bulk of the area that I had to spend a lot of time on just because it's very difficult to navigate. But I don't think the wetland delineation on this portion of the parcel is really complete. I would say that it needs to be, and I really don't want to send somebody back out there because I think it's torture. But I just couldn't, it was one of those things. So it's not like moving like you guys were talking about with your last one. Do we want to move? It's moving it 3 feet, like that big of a deal. This wasn't like a 3-footer situation. Like there are large chunks of wetlands in here that aren't on the plan. So, and that's with hydric soils, hydrology.
And this is B11?
This is, I'm
Yeah.
specifically pointing to between A, C, and BD, this big area.
AC and BD?
Yeah. And then I also think BD, I didn't agree with where they ended that. I think that continues upslope. This next wetland is the one that connects, in my opinion, to the E wetland, which is more BD flags. And then B11 all the way over to the west, I think that also continues upslope.
I don't know where that is.
Good luck finding it.
So That's on this section back here. So right down by Holland Road, when you go all the way back down. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot of seeps, a lot of, ravines in there. It's been messed up because of the trees that have fallen, so. I'm sure they did the best they could, but, at the time of year, but it was, I think it needs to be looked at. I didn't have, and I believe that sums up any of my findings. If anybody has any questions.
I guess my one question, it would be on the low point on the north side of Doughty
Yes.
that connects to the finger. So you want that checked, and you're saying that there is, so the flat part's the wetland, but I guess it's determining what is the limit of that?
Yes, that would need to be formally delineated for the
Right, and I
plan.
guess the determination of that was based on vegetation and hydric soils, so then we would be basically sampling vegetation and hydric soils until we didn't hit that preponderance.
Yeah.
And so that would be our limit, is what was essentially what we're judging that based on.
Yeah, you would follow the criteria in the Wetlands Protection Act for where your boundary of,
Well, I'm just, the reason why I'm asking, I'm not trying to be difficult, is just that, so wetland scientists already, or Ecotech already said they didn't feel it was a wetland, you feel it is a wetland, and now we're asking Ecotech to go back and flag what they already didn't feel was a wetland, as a wetland.
But,
So I guess how do we,
right, but I think when they went out there, it was probably cut, so I don't, and they didn't submit any forms that they actually sampled there.
Okay.
So we don't have any information that they actually looked at it.
Okay.
So I think they might have
Information.
maybe walked over it, and if it was cut, you can't see the vegetation.
Sure.
Dry time of year, maybe
okay,
didn't
I just
see
wanna make
it,
sure
so,
that we're kind
yeah.
of looking through things through the same
Like-
lens, and that whatever
Yeah.
they get
I-
to is similar to what you're seeing, and that way we kind of come back all on the same page as opposed to them saying, well, I think it's this, and then it's a back and forth. We don't want that to happen, obviously, so I just want to get some clarity, so that way when we give Ecotech the direction as you provided, that we're giving them the proper direction.
Well, you just got the report, so I would think that, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I think that what you should do from here is to take the report and, check her work and, come back to us with any challenges, or if you want to agree to the whole thing as it is.
Sure, and, well, you can't because there's not enough to agree with yet, I guess, as far as delineation.
Right,
So-
no, that's what I'm saying, you can't,
Right, so, no, we-
so
well,
having a
obviously,
conversation here isn't gonna help us, you gotta get out there and take a look at it and come back and, say this is,
I guess how would you like things to happen as far as interaction of GZA and Ecotech? So we give Art the report, he goes back out, takes it, can she go out and say yes, or do we actually have to revise a plan, get a plan, she walks back out? I'm just trying to understand process to try to
yeah, that's a good
get
question.
ourselves as efficient as possible without
Yeah.
a lot of plan back and forth and consultants back and forth, that when Art's out assessing for this, can we call them or let Becky know and she can call GZA, or do we coordinate that? What do you,
I think
What's
I
the
would
best
feel
way to kind of have that
comfortable with Ecotech communicating with GZA, but being part of the correspondence. And then, right, whatever I think might be easiest for them to move forward with it would probably be okay.
I think if they both get on the same page, generally seems like we're gonna agree with what they come to the consensus with, I would think.
So what you're trying to prevent is a he said, she said.
Yeah, and just a
Situation.
lot of back and forth where we're going to multiple
Right.
meetings when we can kind of get everybody out there, hang some flags, get it resurveyed, and that's the plan.
So who would be reporting back to you, Becky? Ecotech? Or Burton? I think that's what you're getting at.
Well, does Ecotech, is there point-to-point
There's-
correspondence, or is everything run through Becky, or? I think the
I think we
easiest
can
way-
just have a conversation with Ecotech too and figure out what would be easiest and best for them to get it to move forward, I think. And I think it's okay as long as, right,
That's
we're
fine
kept
with
in the
me.
loop with it.
Yeah.
We are done with that contract, I think, with GZA, so that would require additional funding for that third-party work, so, but I think we can figure that out and how to move forward with that.
They'll have to determine whether they're willing to pay that.
Right.
to do that.
That too. So maybe
If you
have a
go with that methodology, you're gonna have to agree to pay.
Sure, well, I don't think we're gonna get an approval on the line that we have without that, so.
Well, look at it, I think the first thing is to look at it and see, if you agree with it. That would
Well,
be,
that's, yeah, so the first thing would be to have our, obviously.
yeah,
his
that,
2 cents
take a
and
look
say,
at
well,
it, see if
we
you
should
agree
fund
with
this
it.
or not,
If
and
you
that's
agree with it, you
obviously
say,
a different discussion, but-
And I think maybe if they look at it,
yeah,
Ecotech goes to the site, and if he has spots where he has concerns with what Casey may have seen out there, then it might just be more efficient at that point of time, because if he
Yeah,
goes
some
out
of the
there and
minor
everything's
wetland
fine.
boundaries, I mean, some of these aren't gonna change generally what we're doing, aren't gonna hurt us, so a lot of them, I think we would just agree, okay, they felt it was 5 feet that way, sure. You know, a lot of those I think are just quick, we'd accept the changes as not impacting what we're trying to do, and especially, on the northern side, the far northernmost boundary is, you know, those slopes and everything, we weren't really planning on doing anything down in that area, so I don't know that, you know, how much, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of buffer zone restriction and slope and reasons why we wouldn't be doing
Yeah.
stuff back there beyond the delineation, so I don't know how much resources we wanna spend, you know, to fill in the gap or just connect it across. I don't, you know, that might be
Right.
a conversation that they have is,
right.
you know, if we overestimate in a couple areas and it saves us time and money, are we okay doing that, so.
Right, that's probably the first step.
Okay.
I mean, I think too, you know, the connection with that isolated wetland, that could change
Yeah.
things based off of your
That
original.
one you can tell just from the topography, generally what that's gonna be, it's just a matter of how wide that is, I
Yeah.
think, so.
Yeah. I mean, it just, yeah, it wasn't on the original plan. I think the original concept plan we saw was there was a road back there, so that could
Right.
affect your project, but if that's still what we're looking at.
Okay.
So I guess I was gonna recommend you ask for a continuation so you can review the stuff that and they would
Yep.
say if you didn't ask for continuation, that they would have to move forward with what they had in front of them, so.
Right, no, I'd like to request a continuance so that we can all get on the same page with this.
Great, all
You
right.
should, before we issue the continuation, ask if there's any comments from the public.
Anybody in the public have a comment? No? Seeing none? All in favor of a continuation?
No comments?
Frank, our next meeting is September 18th, also on a Tuesday. It would be at 6:30.
Way to go, Andy.
Would you like,
Minor
do you want
changes.
to, be continued to the next meeting? Is that enough time, do you think, 2
Yeah,
weeks?
I'll have to check with Art, and if we're not available, and we
We'll
can't do it
okay.
immediately, we'll just
Okay.
let me know and
All
we'll
right.
just push it back
Okay,
even farther,
Thank you.
but that would be great if we could get on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your good work.
Thank you.
Casey, great job.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Not yet.
Nice meeting you.
Casey, nice to meet you. Yeah.
you're gonna vote on giving him a
Yes.
continuation?
Beg your
You
pardon?
don't have to vote on giving him a
Yeah, all in favor of the
All the-
continuation?
Just do the card exchange.
Now we're gonna vote.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Ashley.
You didn't have his hand
No,
up.
that's why I said not yet.
Oh, okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Casey.
You're not
Take
ready
care.
yet.
But we're getting there.
You're trying.
All right, we are now at 6:45. Notice of intent, DEP number 300-1018, continued from 6/7/18. Got that right, huh? Dowdy Road and Stallion Hill. O'Connell P., represented by Burton Engineering.
I just want to give you a quick update, and then I'll be requesting a continuance. So subsequent to submitting the plans, I met with Greg Morris, DPW Director, to review the plans and see what his questions, comments, or concerns were. And one of the things that he mentioned was that he wanted more survey information where we were placing laterals to existing properties. Just wanted to make sure we were coordinated with driveways and all that sort of thing, as well as the topography and all that stuff to make sure the connections were going to be making sense for the owners to tie in. And so we went out and did a bunch of survey work all up Stallion Hill to the existing houses that are there. We updated the plans and gave Greg a informal submittal to review, and he has that. I haven't gotten comments back on that. So we were waiting to get his kind of blessing on the overall plan before we gave you a revision, so that way it wasn't a lot of back and forth with DPW and you guys getting a bunch of different plans. So we're still awaiting his comments, and hopefully the latest plan that I gave him addressed those comments, and so we can get the plan back in front of you to keep it moving. So that's where we are on the sewer extension.
When did you give him the plan, Frank?
2 weeks ago, I think.
3 weeks.
Oh, is it 3?
I think it's like
Okay.
3 weeks.
Was it 3, Andy?
Seems like it was 3 weeks
It
ago.
might have been 3, but about 2 weeks or something like that. So I was gonna just try to stay on him this week and see if I can get an answer back from him, so.
Okay.
So that's where we're at with that. If there was any other questions or concerns, we take them and obviously incorporate them in, but haven't really given you much new information to comment on.
Yeah,
so.
we don't have information to comment on, so. All right, well, thank you very much. Yep.
Continuation.
Continuation, we already have it.
So you
Oh,
think,
the same, oh, for the, I'm sorry.
do you want to
So this is a
schedule it for
different
our
one.
next meeting as well?
Yeah, if we
Okay.
could, like I said, I'd like to, I think we're pretty close, and whatever he has at this point, hopefully it's minor enough that,
Yep.
you know, we get that, whatever minor thing is and get the
Okay.
plan into, so.
All in favor?
Yeah, and, okay.
All in favor?
Maybe try to get it to us like a week in advance if you can before
Yeah,
the
well,
meeting,
I'm
so they
gonna
have
try
time to look at
I'm gonna
it.
try to see if I can
Yeah.
get in touch with him before the end of the week, and that way I can get you something
Okay,
early to mid next week.
Okay.
Would be my goal, so. We'll see, that's late plans there.
Just enough time so we can actually review it.
Yes, I would like to give you that courtesy, as I'm throwing something at
You
you
will-
tonight in the next hearing, so.
You'll notice Tuesday nights,
Yes,
just,
yeah.
Same time, same place, 2 weeks from now.
I'm not telling you, I'm telling Barnacle.
All set, sounds good. All set.
Thanks, gentlemen.
thanks.
All right, we got a couple minutes to catch up.
I'm not getting rid of me, so I can give you some clerical items and a couple of
You know,
hands.
you could- the folks out in the aisleway, we have lots of seats. Come on in to be comfortable.
Yeah, that came in last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
So legal ad
Thank
and
you.
the butter
Thank
notification.
you.
Time, you guys are looking for something to read, this works out really well, that have a little bit of, like, reading for you.
We need light.
That's what we need, right? So, we can-
Oh, you're doing it to us.
Thank you, sir. I'll try to keep things brief, guys.
Oh, I already gave that to him. I told you I would.
Doing my thing.
Yeah, we have.
Okay, well.
Right, that's
All right, you
the,
guys
your
have
alternative
that.
analysis that,
Yeah, the alternatives analysis and then just the seed mix.
Sounds good, thanks. Coast Hotel.
I vote for more Joe Pyreed.
Just gonna grab a glass of water. Excuse me.
Back here, I'm realizing I should send you more colored plans. They show up nice on the
yeah,
projector.
yeah.
They're expensive to print out, but if we're just sending you PDFs, there's no reason why we couldn't do a lot more color with the PDF version.
Yeah, that would help the visual. Do you want me to show that original plan of what,
Yeah, however you want to start off. If you wanted to start off with just a little history and then I'll kind of hop into what we're doing.
yeah, I mean, this is just, I put it on the copier and scanned it, I think, when it came in, so I think it's this one. Actually, I think I made this one for this lot before, so this is, lot 6 is this one.
Yeah.
Close enough, huh?
Yep.
Notice of intent, DEP number 300-1022, 16 Hunter Lane, J. Weaver, repair/replacement of existing falling retaining wall, represented by Burton Engineering. Okay.
Good evening, Frank Licari with Burton Engineering, engineer of record. Here this evening to review plans to remove and replace a failing retaining wall with a 2-to-1 slope. And the property is 16 Hunter Lane, shown on the subdivision plan as Lot 6. It was originally designed to have a one-to-one slope in the back. However, in lieu of the one-to-one, a retaining wall was built back in this area here. And that retaining wall is starting to fail. It seems like there was undermining of the wall. It's a big block wall. And some undermining has happened, and the blocks are in disarray, they're not plumb, and it's in a state of failure. And the failure is going to progress to the point that if the wall gives out, eventually soil behind the house will start to give out. So we just want to get that wall replaced as soon as possible, as economically as possible. Here representing John and Katie Weaver. They moved in last year after being in Auburn in a fixer-upper that they were done fixing up and wanted to just enjoy their house, raise their kids, and so they're done with construction projects. Unfortunately, the wall had other ideas and decided to present itself as another challenge for them. So they're taking on that challenge and trying to resolve it as economically as they can. We considered a few different options, which I've given you an alternatives analysis of some of the options we considered and why we arrived to the option that we're at now. So the simplest solution would just be to take out the big blocks that are failing and replace it with some other kind of wall. The height of the wall presents some challenges. It's over 10 feet high, so it's a structural wall. And if we did another block wall, due to the height of it, it would need some grid reinforcement, which means we would be basically running grid back into where the deck and patio are in order to get the grid back far enough to provide the structural support that it needs. So a grid wall was kind of ruled out as being very disruptive to the area as well as costly. So we looked at a poured-in-place wall, and the cost on a poured-in-place wall, just for the height, the reinforcement, the difficulty of the construction due to the tight constraints was over $100,000 and just not economically possible. That's a third of the value of the house, and at that point, they'd be better off just walking away than shelling out the $100,000 with really little to show for it besides.
Just for the wall.
Oh, so that's just the wall and not some of the other things. So the cost was over $100,000 for that poured-in-place wall. So that was ruled out as not economically feasible. So then, where a wall didn't seem to be an economic option, we looked at some different grading options. So ideally, for a slope to not require any maintenance, you'd go 3-to-1. That's stable during construction, it's stable post-construction. You're not too worried about if you get a heavy storm on a 3-to-1 slope. So a 3-to-1 would be great as requiring the least stabilization. However, a 3-to-1 slope puts us down right to the wetland line and doesn't leave any room for equipment to maneuver, and it would also require grading out onto abutting properties to tie back into existing retaining walls. We wanted to keep all the repairs on our property, so we went to a 2-to-1 slope. 2-to-1 slope allows us to grade the site out. 2-to-1 slope doesn't work at the very edges because we just don't have the room to make it up without going on the abutting property. So the two edges would be a little bit steeper than 2-to-1, closer to a 1-to-1 in this area right in here. We're calling for additional stabilization where it's 1-to-1, and the 2-to-1 slope, we're calling for stabilization during construction with an erosion control blanket, and then loam and seed. And I gave you this evening a seed mix. The idea would be to take down the existing fence in the back and put it back in place and let this naturalize. Just let it return back to woods, keeping the fence in place, and let nature take its course with some assistance of some loam and the New England Conservation Wildlife Mix, which is a bunch of different species to provide more habitat than just, say, a grassy area, because we don't want to get back here and maintain it. We want to just let it grow. And that's the idea. So we're proposing some erosion controls at the toe of the slope and leaving a little bit of area for equipment at the bottom to try to maneuver. We're picking up the existing downspouts and foundation drains and discharging them at the toe of the slope. We're actually about 20 feet. The outlet of the pipe is almost 20 feet from the wetlands, and we have about 8 feet of a big stone apron as an energy dissipator. So that way, all the storm water runoff and whatever in the springtime when that foundation drain's working, the water can come, sit a little bit, and then trickle its way into the wetland. So get rid of the velocity. It's all clean water because it's groundwater and rooftop runoff. So we don't have any treatment. We aren't proposing any infiltration measures, such as dry wells or Cultex or anything under the slope. The wall is failing because it's being undermined, so there's some water migrating down, bringing the soil with it. The concern would be that if we were to do any type of infiltration system and introduce more water into this area, that undermining would continue. And so we want to bring the water to the toe of the slope, so that way water isn't affecting this beyond what just falls on it and goes down the slope. A one-to-one was considered. However, the one-to-one is not as stable as the two-to-one. And the concern would be with the undermining that's happening now, if there is in the future any issues with groundwater or something that happens in this area and there is more undermining, a one-to-one slope, once it's undermined, is going to fail similar to a wall, and that it's going to be a catastrophic failure because you have very large boulders, flat rocks, that are going to be undermined and tumble down. And so that's not really repairable by a homeowner. Whereas if we do have any settling or undermining of a 2-to-1, then you can get some loam delivered, wheelbarrow it out, and take a section of fence out, wheelbarrow it, do some repairs as necessary. So we feel that it's a more homeowner-friendly solution. And a 1-to-1 slope brought us down. This is 2-to-1, so halfway. Essentially, would be a 1-to-1 slope. And we'd still want to get down to maneuver. So I don't know that even if we went to a 1-to-1 slope that we'd really be changing this limit of work all that much, because we want equipment to be able to come down the slope and work back up and have some room to maneuver and turn around. So there are some trees that need to be removed in here. And we are proposing some mitigation plantings. There's some pines, oak, maple. We were proposing replacing with some maple and oak. And Becky actually had a great idea that hopefully the commissions might be on board with. And I haven't actually spoken with the homeowners about it yet, but there are some existing mountain laurels, shrubs, saplings, and whatnot that are on this slope now, that some of them might be able to be dug up, bagged up, and saved, and then replanted on. Since we're just a 2-to-1 slope, there's no reason why we couldn't replant some of this slope with some shrubs, as opposed to just trying to put some trees down at the bottom. But again, we are proposing the conservation and wildlife mix, and we just want this to renaturalize and have a long-term economic solution that keeps the wall from failing completely, undermining the house, and then something that they can afford to do, relatively speaking, as far as it's nothing anyone wants to spend money on, but we found this to be the most economical approach. So we did consider some other options, and we feel that this is really the best way for the homeowners to go moving forward.
Okay, Becky?
I think I used more than my 5 minutes, but close.
No, there's no 5-minute rule, right?
Thanks, Frank.
It's on walk-ins.
Yep. I'd like to be brief, and I wanted to give you kind of a decent overview of kind of how we got to where we got to.
Yeah. So thank you. Thanks for putting the alternative analysis together. I think that's important to show that you've really looked at all the options to try to avoid and minimize disturbance here. I mean, since this is an existing site, we have a failing wall here. It's not a new project. We understand there's some constraints with how it can be done. It would be working within our 25-foot no-touch. I think that because of the issues on the site, and like I said, it's not a new development, that's something that can be considered, considering there's no viable alternative. And that's why we kind of asked for that alternative analysis, to show that you've kind of looked at what those options are so they can take that all into consideration. So, I mean, I had a couple questions. Frank and I did talk today and went over a couple things, some additional comments. One would have been the seed mix, which I'm happy to see that it would be a wildlife mix on whatever outcome ends up here. Erosion control blanket, I think that's a great way to quickly stabilize it, so we don't have to worry about any issues. I would just say that'd be something that's biodegradable, like a jute there. I really like the idea of maybe trying to use some of those plants that are there, and that might be able to save you guys a little bit with that. And then maybe, those are all trees that are planted at the bottom, that maybe we wouldn't need as many there because they're all maple and oaks. They're pretty close. I think that you could stagger that with some shrubs. I was kind of concerned with the outfall shown within about 10 feet, the pipe's back a little bit further and taking that water down there. We've seen some discharges close to wetlands and washouts. I understand it's perimeter drain. Is the perimeter drain underneath the wall right now? Is that the pipe that comes out underneath?
Yeah, well, there's two pipes.
Yeah,
I think they tied the downspouts into the perimeter drain, and all that was supposed to go out under the wall, and it's all damaged now. And so they John disconnected the downspouts from the subsurface pipe.
Right, and that's
just
going
fill it
off on
out
the
and
side
then put
now.
a swale to kind of direct
Yeah.
it away from the wall.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think they all are down there.
Yeah.
So.
And I know it's just roof runoff, but roof runoff isn't necessarily clean. As we know, asphalt shingles and things deteriorate, there's chemicals and stuff like that. So that's kind of why we were asking that question too, if there was something else you could at least move it back a little bit. I understand there's a concern about putting it on the slope, and washing out the slope and things like that. I don't know if there's any option of doing something there, but I think that, if it's set back enough, you got a good splash pad there, and, plants are gonna vegetate around that afterwards, that can help, help infiltrate a little bit, and pull some of that stuff in before it gets into the wetland.
Sure.
That's most of my comments on the design. I was kind of asking about the Cultec and pulling that back, thinking that, I was measuring the pipes, they're like 60 feet that were coming down, so I didn't know if the cost of doing that and the construction was the same, something. I understand the concerns about having all that water back behind there, and a concern, especially because you are gonna have, on the sides, you'll still have riprap over here, and the wall connects, and then that there. So I think there could be a concern with undermining that and future maintenance issues. I think this design, as you kind of pointed out, would have the least amount of maintenance and issues long-term. I think when I was asking about the one-to-one, you did, come back with a good point, that in the future, if there is an issue, how are you gonna fix it, and costs, and it actually being done. So I think there's some validity for that there.
Not that John can't be a weekend warrior with the Bobcat, but I don't think he wants to be in that situation.
Right, and it's hard too for us to make sure, we can make perpetual conditions for making sure that there's no issues here, but
Yeah.
following up on and making sure that all these things that are happening would have to be done, and that's not something that can easily be done all the time too. So trying to avoid those extra type of maintenance things is beneficial for everyone in the wetlands in the long run. So I think you guys have done a good job going through that alternative analysis, and, I guess I'd recommend to carefully consider and take into consideration also too, that it's not a new development, that we're looking at impacting within the 25-foot. This is an existing failing retaining wall that was illegally built that needs to be resolved, so. What I got?
Bless you. Paul, you want to start out?
No, I think they've got a lot of work to do, that's for sure, to get this thing right. And my concern is, I think they're doing the right thing, but I have a feeling that the problem might be all along that ridge.
Yeah, and I went back out there because I brought Steve out there, and I looked at the as-built plans, and the wall is mostly just behind this house. So off to the right over here, the wall ends here. This person doesn't have a wall behind them. Am I correct? Yeah, there's no wall
They do
there.
a bit, but.
It's
yeah,
just a
it
slope.
Kind of tapers off.
Yeah, and here they have a wall,
Right.
but this one, doesn't appear to be failing at this time, and I don't think the wall extends their whole property either. So this is pretty much the bulk of the wall here.
Steve, excuse me.
Yeah, I appreciate the alternatives analysis, and I would go along with this 2-to-1 slope. We have a project somewhere, I think it was the one that was back behind Town Hall, where we really needed to extend a 2-to-1 slope onto another person's property. And we challenged the proponent to see if they could come to an agreement of increasing the slope, including the slope over onto their property. And to me, that would really make this thing an excellent plan. It's a great plan now. The 1-to-1 on the edges could be problematic, but with jute and vegetation, I've seen 1-to-1.
My only concern about going off property is that there is a wall there, and if we do anything up against that wall, and then a couple of years from now, if something were to happen to that wall, or if that wall is a year or two ready from failing, and we just pushed a bunch of dirt up against it, then all of a sudden, if they sell the house, the next person buys it and says, well, my wall failed because you pushed dirt against it, even, I was nice and let you grade onto my property.
Okay, that's a good point.
I understand, and my first thing was to, like I said, the 3-to-1 was, but that would have been grading out, and so,
You know,
I'm
that
not saying
would,
we couldn't possibly do it that way, but that would be my concern from protecting the homeowners as far as liability and getting it.
It would work on the side on the right, because there's
Yes.
just these very large boulders that Becky drugged me down there. I don't
Yep.
think she realized I'm.
No, right side, I think we could blend in pretty well
Yeah.
with that, but
And
the
then-
left side, I think is a little trickier where it's more of a wall.
I'll go along with that. That's a good estimation. And I would be fine with this, because I've seen 1-to-1 stabilized. with-
It's probably, it's not even, it's probably a little less than 1-to-1, but
Yeah.
it's easier to call it 1-to-1 than just.
I'd go along, Ed, with the recommendation here.
Stephen, you want to go next?
Yeah.
It's bad news.
Yeah, I sympathize with you, and I feel bad about this. I have a lot of heartache over this, though, because this is a really nice wetland down in here. I would, for me to approve this, one thing I'd like to consider is, would it be possible to use some of these existing blocks to put down here at the bottom so that we can bring this, this construction further away from the, I mean, I didn't see that in the analysis, but if you could, place the blocks here, maybe have a 4-foot wall instead of the, 10-foot wall you've got here, that could limit some of the cutting down here and get us just that much further away from.
The cutting, we have to, I'm sorry, Dave, I can drain them.
Dave, you got to
Dave-
use the mic, though.
Yeah.
we're not going to the audience yet, though.
Okay.
That's part of the application.
Well, then he can sit up there with you, and
Okay.
it's fine.
He's not in the butter, he's a concerned
He-
party,
He's, okay,
contractor.
he's a contractor doing the job. Okay.
We can do that, but we have to be very careful. I'm afraid if we came up 4 feet and the slope, it would walk, if something happened, it'd push the wall down. I wouldn't mind going 1 block, but that would be up to Frank. But I'm not really nuts about that.
If we took the blocks off the top that we were gonna basically just stack up next to it and bury,
Right,
I'd be fine with doing 1 block along the bottom here.
right.
And that gains us 2 feet, it gives us a pretty defined edge. It's gonna hold it, but nothing's gonna ever topple over on the 1 block. It's not a square block, it's not gonna go anywhere. We're gonna stack them up. Potentially, things could build up. They're pretty big blocks. I don't think it would fail at 4 feet, but I'd be more comfortable with the 2 feet to tighten it up. Plus the amount of blocks I think that we're gonna get out of it, I don't know that we would be able to do a full 4 foot all the way across.
Okay.
Just the condition
What would an
of the
advantage be of having the blocks at the bottom, though, Frank?
Well, like Steve
To
mentioned.
pull
that
it
just-
away from the wetland.
You'd pick up a couple of feet of grade.
You still have to work in that area, though.
Yeah, and you're still gonna need to level it out to place the blocks, so it's not like you're gonna just pick them up and drop them on top of the loam.
Well-
You'd still wanna level it right here to prepare for the blocks, and, I mean,
Okay, so I'd like to take a look at it to see if we can save some mature trees in this area by doing that.
I don't think there's any actually.
Yeah, I think they're all up.
Yeah, I think most of them are up top. I don't
Right.
know if the good trees are really at the bottom.
Yeah, I didn't see any
think
when I was
this
out there.
is-
Yeah, no, they're all kind of in that side slope.
Okay.
So that's why even like I said, even
There
with
is
the
some
1-to-1 ending right here, we're still gonna take all the trees out. The only thing a 1-to-1 saved, I think, was this guy over here, because we ended up tying it up here. But, so we're,
Right.
could save that one potentially with a 1-to-1.
All right, I have a lot of heartache over this, because you're carving out a huge swath here.
Yep, no, if
and
you want
it's
us to
and
plant
it's-
it, then I'm happy moving the trees up, putting the trees.
Yeah, I'd
These
like to
trees were
see
more of a
this, right, I'd like to see, if, for me to approve this, I want to see this really thoroughly planted and, brought back to the way it is as much as possible,
Well,
as quickly as possible.
To that, I would say budget. It's to plant the whole thing, what we can carry for a budget to plant, that's what's gonna drive what we wanna plant, because as it is, it's a project that we need to do, and it's over budget because we need to do it. It's not because we wanna do it. So with respect to your planting, we have the conservation seed mix, we have a mix of trees, we're happy to substitute some shrubs for some trees if you tell us what you want. I'd like to get approval tonight, and if there's any way that can happen.
Frank, Sorry, what about, when I was talking to him earlier, I was talking about, I was thinking about like the Hammett Brook project where we have a lot of, they use the old tree stumps and slash to create habitat on the banks of where they did the restoration project. Is that something that you guys could do? Could you use some of the trees and large branches that come down and put them back on the hillside after it's stabilized? I don't know if you can put it on the side.
Litter to make it
Like,
back to woods.
Well, you know what?
Well, not trying to be facetious, but I think that's kind of what you want. I mean,
Right.
I think
Once
it
once we
saves.
throw all the branches and stuff up there, you're instantly gonna have a place for
Ah.
rabbits and all that kind of stuff.
So this is the Hammett Brook restoration project. This is
Can't
all.
guarantee it, but I tried. But
Yeah.
we wanted to chip everything because it's gonna be a little tough to get it out of there, you know? And I would have to push the brush closer to the
Closer
What
to
she's
the
saying is
wetland.
leave most of the wood matter to decay, just leave a lot of it
in the slope.
on top of it.
On top of
Yeah,
it.
I'm not gonna get it there. We gotta clean it up so I can get in there.
Well, right, you'd have to put it off to the side and then put it.
Well, you could use some of the wood chips too on the bank too. The wood chips might not be bad, but so this is the Hammett Brook. So they seeded, there's a jute netting on this, and then this is all kind of the debris they left. So it adds that habitat value in there. I don't know
It's
if,
not a 2-to-1 slope though.
all right, well,
Correct.
I think we need to stabilize it is the most important
well,
thing.
that would be, yes, this would be on top of it. I didn't know if it was an option that could help enhance habitat quicker
Right.
on the site. So there's small things like that that can be done if branches are pushed over onto a neighbor's property and bring them back over or something. I think that could be beneficial for habitat.
Yeah, we're willing
And-
to
and
do
bring that back quicker.
To the extent that we're not gonna completely brush over the whole slope, but yeah. to the
Exact-
extent that we
right,
can-
yeah.
To the extent that we can create a reasonable sized pile that we can then put on top of it, we're happy to do that as a
We'll
condition.
leave it
And I really,
Yeah, exactly.
I like the idea that you're gonna try to reuse, some of the saplings you've got there that are already existing. I think that's a great idea, save some money and, if we can do that. I wanna see that go back to as close as possible to what it is right now.
Well, that's
Um,
what we'd like to have happen again, that's
yeah.
why we're going with the wildlife mix, and that's why we plan on just putting the fence back up and leaving it. Nature created it, nature will recreate it, it's just gonna take time.
Yeah. All right.
David?
3 general areas. What's the total number of trees that you're gonna be cutting? Any idea?
I think it's 14.
Go to the bottom of the slope. I'm a little bit anxious about the dissipator, the energy dissipator.
Yep.
Again, I go back to the seriousness of the storms we've been getting.
Oh, yeah, no, it's been pretty torrential.
Would it be possible to increase the size of the dissipator without getting closer to the wetland? So that you're spreading it more?
Yeah, we can pull it back 5 feet without much of a problem. I think once we start pulling back another 10 feet, then we start being into the slope.
No, I'm not interested in getting it onto the slope.
Oh, no, yeah, we're fine starting it
But
right at the toe. That's, yeah.
Make it wide
Yeah.
so that as it comes off, it's not picking up more fines, it's not gonna undercut.
Yeah, no, well, that's the idea of discharging at the toe of the slope too, is that we're not picking up anything. We're at the level area, we're sending it out, it's going over the stone, and then it's just dissipating out. It's not a
And,
level spreader, but the idea of it is that we're discharging to a level area.
right, all we're looking for again
Yeah.
is dissipate the energy.
Right, yeah, no, so that's, I mean, I think we did, I forget what size it was, 6 feet by 8.5 feet, so, yeah, it's fairly
It's
significant.
pretty big.
Yeah, and it's only, I mean, it's, again, so it's, rooftop runoff is your main peak. Yeah, you're gonna get the groundwater in the springtime, but that's not gonna be a quick surge, that's gonna just rise up. and
No, it'll be,
catches it.
that's gentle, I'm not worried about
Right, yeah,
that.
it's the heavy downpours, yeah.
Okay. And the blocks at the top,
Yep.
what's gonna happen?
The ones that we're gonna take them out and set them back in a nice way, or the ones on top, I will get rid of. We're gonna use the bigger ones for the bottoms. And the ones on top were like stones, flat stones, I believe.
What bottom?
I'm sorry, what?
What bottom?
The one Stephen was
The
talking
gentleman
about.
would like
I
a
was
row of
asking.
blocks across the bottom, and we
Oh,
said
yeah,
we'd do
yeah,
it.
so, all right,
Move
well, I
it
didn't
back.
know we changed to that.
Well, I mean, if that's what you fellows want.
That was my suggestion. It's whatever the board
Yeah, so
agrees
just-
to.
we're okay with it either way.
Give you my input on
Okay, and
this.
then the top ones you're taking away.
Yeah, and I can leave my machine down the bottom, because once I get down there, I might be there to dissipate the water.
Old Dave is down there with his machine.
That's not what I'm looking for, Dave.
Well, bear in mind the
I'm sorry, I
comment.
couldn't resist. You
Bear
guys-
in mind the comment of the additional disturbance down there in order to level to put those blocks down there.
Correct.
So that would be something that,
We're not, I
Yeah.
don't believe there's gonna be a problem, because we're gonna be down there anyway. And the ledge, I believe, and Frank would know better, stops before that area, I
Yeah,
believe.
as far as I know, the ledge is kind of, it's some of the bottom of the blocks are kind
And
of
that-
up on it, so it's up in this area here, and then we're kind of filling over it, so whatever we had to strip off.
And that's another reason a one-to-one slope wouldn't be good, to be sitting on the ledge like the blocks are.
right?
Yeah.
I'd give you a few comments on it. First of all, you've made me very uncomfortable with the presentation of this project. When we're talking about, using a Bobcat on weekends to solve that's only, if you're using a Bobcat on weekends to do repairs, that means that there's silt in the wetland, right?
That was meant as a joke.
That was a joke.
One-to-one slope, Bobcat on weekends is not a joke.
No, again,
I mean, that's a concern.
being facetious.
I think from my point of view, I feel this is an emergency project, but on the other hand, I think we need to do it right. I'm concerned about the one-to-one toward the neighbors on either side, and how are you going to handle that?
Understood. So here, we're not really, you're maybe a little bit right in here, maybe? I think most of this was all 2-to-1. And then this side I was more reinforcing because of the swale as we're interfacing.
As I stood on the top of that wall,
Yeah.
and I looked out, and I looked down, and I looked left, and I looked right, if you keep it all on your property, that's a problem, because you're not going to be filling behind the wall on the left or the right. If you go to a one-to-one, you're going to be on the neighbor's property. What was suggested, if you ask the neighbors if they will allow you to fill behind their walls.
For liability reasons, I don't want to propose filling behind other people's walls. I just think that's bad. It's inviting a lawsuit down the road with other
Well,
homeowners.
if you get permission to do it, I can't imagine that, well, as we've had in the past, they said fine, they signed, and they let them do it. All we're asking is that you ask them.
I understand that, but I'm presenting my reason why we don't want to ask, and we don't want to incur liability. We don't want to potentially, as we're filling against a wall on their property, all it takes is one little nudge of the bucket, and we damage their wall now, because we're on their property,
Well.
working on their wall. And I don't want to be responsible for repairing a wall that's okay, while we're repairing a
Well,
wall
we
that's
can,
failing. I
well,
want to
let's
repair the
turn,
failing
let's
wall.
turn
I
it,
don't want to repair a-
turn it around the other way then. What are you gonna do to assure for me that a one-to-one slope is going to be locked in and held and not silt continually into the wetland? It's blown out blocks, the water has blown out blocks on that property that Godzilla couldn't lift. And he's gonna do the same thing with the rest of that hillside.
The wall wasn't built right. There's no stone behind it, no pipe behind it.
Right.
The water gets behind it, and every winter, it freezes and pushes it a little.
Right.
Had it been built right,
The
It
one-to-one
wouldn't have
riprap's not gonna hold the water. The water can dissipate right through it. And then, again, we're gonna seed everything. We'll chink the one-to-one riprap with loam and seed it. I mean, you see one-to-one ripraps, they're not blowing silt out everywhere. I mean, I think you're taking this to an extreme that's unreasonable at this point. For the one-to-one that we're talking about, Ed, is right here. This is it. It's what, 10 blocks, 10 pieces of rock that we're talking about? This is all 2-to-1. This is all 2-to-1. The 1-to-1 is right here. A very small area that you're worrying about washing out and silting up the wetland, which I don't think is warranted, that concern. I don't think it's a big enough area. I think everything's gonna be loamed and seeded, and if there is any soil between the rocks, weeds are gonna grow. And we're gonna let them stay there, and they're gonna stabilize it.
does he know it's gonna be outbreak back right through there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as the distance that you've gone right to the edge of the 25-foot.
I did the bare minimum that I felt that they could get equipment down and move around with. We don't want to disturb anything more than we have to, but I'm not gonna have a 2-to-1 slope and then have the hay bale line right at the bottom of it, and then he's working the slope the whole time. I mean, he needs to be able to get down and have some bottom area to work from, and then to be able to get back up.
Okay. Anybody, any other comments here?
David, did you?
Anybody in the audience like to speak?
Guess.
You need to use the microphone, sorry, it's because it's recorded.
Yeah.
Judy Soroka, 16 Evergreen Lane, and I'm in a butter. I have no problem with this project.
Which
Okay.
side are you on? I'm sorry. Where are you in a butter?
To the right,
Okay.
and I basically own 3/4 of that whole back piece of land there. Number one, there's a zillion trees, bushes, evergreens, mountain laurel, witch hazel. You can have it all from my property. Seedlings, I'm serious. 1,000 of them in a square foot, you could just have them all. The sad part to all this, gentlemen, is that the wall was built wrong originally. That's the sad part, and these people are stuck with something they didn't ask for. So I'd like to see this resolved as quickly as possible for them, because winter's coming. You know, and if you've walked back there, you've seen the condition. And that's my only thought. The Leos on this side put in a swimming pool. They took the dirt from the swimming pool and put it behind, so that sheared up their backyard. Thank God they did that. I don't know about the other people's property. But this needs to be fixed, and it needs to be addressed quickly. So hopefully you can help these people.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, John Weaver, the property owner. I just wanted to state, first of all, that this isn't something we're asking for. This isn't something we want to do. This is something we inherited. We moved into the house a year ago. We love the house. We love Sturbridge. Went through the process the way we thought we were supposed to at the time of buying the house. We're never alerted that the wall was an issue. Come out this spring, and we discover this. And we've been doing the best we can to try to resolve this and do the right thing here. We've kind of scraped together pennies and borrowed every dollar we can to afford the project that's in front of you right now. And we're very nervous about anything that might concur that beyond, because really we're at a point now where we're making our house uneconomical. We're going to be underwater for years to come, and we're okay with that because we love Sturbridge, we love the house. But I ask for your, to please bear that in mind as we talk about this wall project. This is something that is having a serious impact on me, my wife, and our children, including one on the way. When it comes to the small section on the 1-to-1 slope, the small section on the other side, I just want to point out, we're not litigious people. We never saw that as part of our life. But we have explored every single legal option we could to try to find someone to help us do this, to no avail. So I'd be very uncomfortable opening us up to potential liability to a neighbor who's going to be, unfortunately, potentially in the same precarious situation and litigious situation. So I would ask for your leniency there. And to the extent this is negatively impacting the wetland, we're very sympathetic to that. This isn't land that we ever intend to touch or use. There's no economic benefit to us of doing this project. We don't intend to expand our yard in any way. We're simply asking to repair a problem we inherited in the most economical but really unaffordable way we can. So we ask for your sympathy in that, and the fact that this is an existing condition. If this isn't a new construction project where we are trying to create something where it didn't exist, we're simply trying to repair a wall we inherited at kind of great peril to our family. So I hope you take that into account. I hope you'll pay some attention to the fact that we're really kind of at the wit's end with this now, where we're really unable to bear any additional cost, unfortunately, and also any additional liability. So I ask for your consideration of that as you review this project. So, thank you all. Thank you, Becky, for your time and effort to try to help us through this. Thank you, Frankie.
One of the things that hasn't been brought up yet tonight, but fits in with the narrative, is that Dave Kavinsky showed some pictures at the site visit of the way the wall was put together. And if the next door wall was put together the same way, they're going to be in exactly the same problem. Because the tongue and groove situation that is supposed to be how that rock wall was put together was completely botched. And we could see the tongue hanging out in a horizontal position instead of a vertical position. It was not in the groove, it wasn't on the right face. So that it lasted as long as it did may possibly be a miracle, but I see this as a project that's trying to protect the wetland at the same time that it's protecting the homeowner. And having the three options that you reviewed, Frank, I second everything that the rest of the committee has said. That's a really neat way of doing it. It's part of our regulations that we do have alternative analysis, and you've done it to my satisfaction.
Okay. We ready to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing.
And I'll second that sucker.
Okay.
I was a sucker.
Discussion. All in favor?
This being a notice of intent. Becky, you ready with some order of conditions?
Yeah, I would recommend we do our typical conditions for, while construction is going on. And then also, we look at revising maybe the planting as we discussed tonight. And we can add that on there. Maybe we kind of monitor the outfalls there a little bit and see how that works. And if needed, we can revise and maybe put some more stone down there after a couple storms once it's constructed.
In my motion, I want to include as part of the order of conditions that you look at the likelihood of getting some of that mountain laurel, because it is native to that area. As the lady has indicated, she's got 1.5 tons of it ready to go.
Maybe some shrubs.
So if you could include that in the order of conditions, that would satisfy me.
Yep.
I move that we approve the project with the order of conditions as indicated.
I'd like to include the two-block pushbacks away from the wetland.
2 block, a stack?
Yeah, the two block,
A height of 2 blocks?
height of 2 blocks back.
One block.
They indicated 1 block.
Yeah, if
One
it's,
block? Okay, one block.
The one.
Yeah.
yeah.
The second block would cause a problem, height-wise.
Yeah, one's good.
So we push the entire project back by the.
Okay, while we're thinking about the order of conditions, Dave, is there going to be enough blocks to be able to make it all the way across the bottom?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
If it's only one?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I thought Becky was putting that in because of Stephen's suggestion.
All right, what else? Got it?
What about the
Were you-
pulling debris off to the side and
Stop
distributing some of it back onto the slope? No?
I'm not in favor of debris on a slope. The next thing you know, that's why they pull out rotten wood as it is, because once it caves in, then you have problems.
It was just gonna be on top. We don't
Not-
we don't have to, it's just added habitat value.
It's just adding habitat value in the short term.
Well,
Can leave it open, you don't have to do it.
any of it that's buried and rots caves in.
It's not buried.
No, yeah, I'm not talking about burying anything.
Yeah. Okay.
This is not a stump cemetery.
Yeah.
Right, no, it's just stuff thrown onto the surface.
You know.
Were you gonna
Actually-
move the spreader back the
Actually,
5
no,
feet or so,
stabilize.
did you think you
Right.
could? Move it,
wanna
okay.
see,
I don't-
yeah.
I don't want to create any kind of dams that the water's gonna, cause. I'd like to have, some habitat.
I think
it's
Frank has an
essentially-
idea of what that's going to be.
And it's essentially slash, you're not, not gonna put logs up
Right
there.
in there. Whatever you feel you need for the habitat.
You're reducing the cost presumably by not having to haul it away somewhere, I don't know.
Like I said, we're comfortable dragging sticks back on top of the thing, if that's what you want, then that's what we'll do.
Okay.
I don't see that as being a problem.
I'd say down the bottom, but not, along the wall, maybe 10 feet, but I wouldn't go up that slope with that stuff.
No,
Yeah,
That's
I
fine.
think he just wants pockets of it for habitat, and that way the critters, otherwise it's a bare thing until the stuff grows and the critters have nowhere to
Exactly.
go, and
so that sums up the order of conditions.
So I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
So we're gonna just revise
Oh,
the plan
thought
and
that
submit
was.
just the new plan with
Oh.
the one wall block
Yeah, we
or?
want to do it either submit the revised plan prior to construction, however you want to do it, that's fine with me.
So we should see a revised plan prior to construction.
Yeah, and I can
The
reference
change
it in the
on
order.
wall and
Yeah,
the change
yeah.
in the-
That's fine.
Put that in
Okay.
order.
I think it's, it's an easy
Yeah, we
change.
don't have an issue with that. Yeah.
With that, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll send out a note to all the neighbors, there's going to be a party picking mountain laurel off the lady's yard.
I'd come down and I'd get some of that. Can't take it. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, he said it was going to be back over his excavator.
She looks like she's gonna give birth any minute.
Yeah.
All right, we are now easily to 7 o'clock, huh?
That was the 7 o'clock.
That was 7 o'clock.
So we have a minor change to orders of conditions for 63 New Boston Road. We could do that next, because that should be quick.
Good. Anything quick.
Welcome back.
How are you? Tom Ravane from Bank Builders.
Welcome back.
It's just a small change that we've got to kind of go over. I know I talked to Becky, I think she mentioned it at the last meeting you guys had. She said I should just come in and kind of go over the change.
Would you turn the microphone so that it faces you, please?
There you go.
Thank you.
The,
Trying to find where I saved the plan you sent me. I scanned it in today and saved it, but I don't know where I put it.
okay.
Maybe I put it here? It's all right, I brought the hard copy, so we can look at that.
Okay. I have one too if we need it.
Well, I can pull up the regular plan. Refresh everyone's memory on the big screen here.
There's more seats in here if you all want to come in and join us.
Sorry, I don't know where I saved it. I didn't find the other ones. So you just want to describe what's been going on out there?
Yeah,
Or actually, quick summary. So this is a project we have orders of conditions for under our local bylaw. It's outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, but we did local orders of conditions, or you did before I started, because it's a steep slope. They're doing a whole new construction that was forested.
Right.
yeah.
Yep, so what's the change?
Well, the change is, since, matter of fact, the homeowner, Christian, who I'm building a home for, is here.
Yep.
And since we've cleared the lot, the home is just about completed right now. We've had some, as you know, some substantial rain this summer. We've discovered that not on this property, the property next door, there is a drain, there's 2 storm drains in the road that both drain onto there's a pipe going right off the side of the road, right onto the neighbor's property, which is directed at this property on 63 New Boston Road. And what's happening is the catch basins are only about a foot deep. They don't appear to have been cleaned
Catch basin.
recently. So the water flow that we've had down the slope pretty tremendously, and it comes right out of that pipe, and it goes into, there was nothing there originally. It's been going on for so long. I think the pipe was put in maybe in the 60s. I had talked to Greg down at the town, and he said that he wasn't sure when it was put in, but it's been there for a while. So there was a lot of siltation and everything built up, so no water was perking through the ground at all. It was just actually filtering out naturally and going down into that, so no one kind of really knew that really existed. It's probably been like that, it has been like that for years. So since we've disturbed the soil in that area, and it's very loose, gravelly type soil, the water that comes out of there is in such high volume, it's creating a washout that's coming out of there. It's overflowing now from that, it's about a 15-inch pipe onto 63 New Boston Road. So it's kind of going out, filling there, and it literally comes out like somebody turned on a fire hydrant. And because of the fact that we've had substantial water coming out, we've replaced, as Becky knows, the siltation fence, the hay bales, we've doubled it up. I know we had when we met here and got the order conditions, we had suggested that we entrench the siltation fence, and we put a row of hay bales, and then we actually put a second, just because of that slope that was coming down, and we've done that. To date, we've done it 5 times, because of the washout that's gone down there. The gully was about 6 feet deep, that's washing down there. We get right on it. Every time there's a problem, we're out there. My son works for me, we're out there, we're fixing it. Christian, the homeowner, knows, he's been out there, he's seen it. Becky knows, I call her immediately and let her know that we're very much aware of what's going on, because it goes right up, I mean, it just goes right up and over everything. We've done our best to maintain it, we've doubled it up, we've tripled up the hay bales, we've done everything, and it just washes right out. It is a town issue. We're trying to work with the town as far as what we can do to resolve the issue. I've talked to the highway department, as well as conservation. We're doing the best we can. We've actually dug it out. We tried digging a hole to get down to the gravel base to see if it could perk itself in when it does fill up. It really filled up with water. I was there watching. I have it on film and multiple pictures of the progression of each storm when I was out there. It filled right up, and once it overflows, it goes down. It's been halting the development of the house. We couldn't put our propane tanks, and we couldn't finish the whole right side of the driveway, anything, until this gets resolved. So it's kind of slowed down the project until we've been trying to resolve it for a good month and a half, 2 months now, since the middle of the summer. Each time we tried a solution, it didn't really work. We just, as of last Friday, dug the hole out about maybe 10 to 12 feet deep, by 10 feet by 10 feet wide, a pretty big hole, and we put 3 truckloads of stone, heavy 6 to 8 inch stone in there. And we've created a swale now to see if that will hold the water. We haven't had a storm yet, but our change, we don't think that's gonna, so I'd like to see a storm to see if it does work, because if it does work, then we don't have to do any more work. It's the reason why we wanted to get on the meeting immediately is talking with Greg from the highway department and going over with Becky. We think that we want to put a spillway, like a detention basin, where when that fills up, and that's going to hold a tremendous amount of water. So if it does rise up to the top, we'd like to get it piped from this point to a point at the bottom of the slope, where we can do the same type of dry well. We can dig a hole, fill it with stone, and let the pipe, so the water can filter out and gradually rise up. It'll rise up here and then filter down there and then fill that, but at least when it rises up down there, it's going to naturally filter out through a process, because it's all gravel down there, so it can percolate down into the ground. If it does overflow on a flat type surface, will filter itself out. Eventually it all makes its way down to the pond down there. So we're trying to prevent it, because it's such a lively base soil right now. As soon as it was opened up and the water hits it, it just ignites and travels. So it has to be kind of controlled, and it has to be done immediately, because we're basically, the town's dumping water onto the property from years ago, and we're trying to resolve it without creating legal issues, because I know the homeowners, you know, they obviously don't want to have that. As a builder, I don't want to keep replacing everything. We want to protect the wetland. The work is all done outside the 100-foot buffer zone. We're going to put the bottom trench down, is at the bottom, outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. So we're in the 200-foot local ordinance, but outside the 100-foot area. We are going to try to put a small retaining wall in the back, just a little 3-foot high, just to kind of stabilize it and lower it down, so it kind of tiers it, so it's not such a steep slope, which is just a little bit along the back of the wall. It's just a little Versalock wall, you know, but just so it doesn't completely run off straight down into it. So that's the only change, and hopefully, you know, the town's going to work with us with the pipe, and getting all the pipe to put in there, because it really is, in the homeowner's eyes, is a town problem, not mine. As the builder, we're trying to work with them. And it wasn't foreseen when they bought the property, because you couldn't really tell that was even there. It was all covered in brush, and didn't even know that there was a pipe there. So we discovered that it washed out half the hill, so. But I think it needs to be addressed ASAP, and we have been monitoring it every time, because every time it rains, luckily we've had a dry week now.
So Greg is going to help you with the piping.
Yeah, he helped us with the stone.
It's 2 10-foot pits. 10 feet deep.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, we're
And 4 to 6 inch stone?
4 to 6 inch. Yeah, we put a real heavy, it was moving, like you were saying earlier, it would, you know, it was moving boulders. Those storms we've had were moving good-sized rocks.
So you're really breaking the velocity again.
Into the first pit. The pipe comes right into the first pit. And we're trying to break the velocity of that so it can fill into that.
But isn't it gonna build up velocity in that pipe going the length of the yard?
It will, but it's more of a spillway, and then it's gonna go into another pit, but otherwise it's going down over loose gravel right now, and that's what's eroding it. And eroded, what it did is it literally, and we have pictures of it, it carved such a way that it was almost 5 to 6 feet deep,
Yeah.
by 5 or 6 feet wide. I mean, it goes right up and over the siltation fence, 2 sections and double up, hey, just buried them. We have to dig them all out, put all new ones in, and we've done it 5 times, and honestly, it's becoming a very costly thing for me, because it's an issue that, you know, I know you can't dump, as we were talking earlier, water on another property and this and that. Well, here the town's dumping water from the street onto their property. So like I said, we're trying to keep the peace with everyone within the town, the homeowners and everything else by working with the town. We're doing the work. I don't mind going in there and helping putting this in to resolve and protect the wetlands, because right now it's an awful mess with all the way the gravel's washing down. So we're trying to we gotta get on it immediately. That's why we put the stone in last Friday. We filled that hole up with stone.
I don't see it as interfering with the flow of water going into Cedar Lake, so I don't see a problem with it. Because once it hits that second swale effectively,
Yeah.
it's gonna percolate back down. The water table is pretty high.
Correct.
Right there.
Yeah,
So it's gonna get into Cedar Lake anyway.
right.
Well, we're not right at Cedar.
Not right at it, but
Yeah,
it's,
there's a wetland.
but it
back
will
there.
be slowed down enough so that it's not gonna cause the environmental damage that it could.
Right. Right now, it can cause some environmental damage because the soil's loose.
I'd like to do a site visit the next time we're doing site visits and take a look at it.
I have some pictures. Do you want me to show you?
No, I think I'd like to see it. I'd like to see where it hits Cedar Lake, too.
Well, it doesn't hit Cedar.
Doesn't hit the lake.
So there's wetlands back here, the limit of works out here, it's 100 feet away. So we're talking about a bordering vegetated wetland. Cedar Lake is,
Yeah, we're way away from
Way
the
over
lake.
there.
yeah, so it's not directly impacting the lake, and it hasn't even, I mean, we're 100 feet away, the bottom of their
Yeah.
limit
So
of
all
work
the
is
work
100,
outside.
of the 100-foot buffer
Correct,
zone,
yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
And right, like you said, it's been blowing the erosion controls out at this site. It's
Right.
been in issue all winter too,
So this is the minor amendment.
Is
Let's make a motion that we approve the minor amendment as provided in the documentation.
I'd second
Discussion? All in favor?
that. It's a great solution.
Thank you.
Did you mention what Greg Morris thinks of,
I went over it with Greg, the plan. We kind of designed this together. We've been working.
I helped too.
Oh, of course you did, yeah. Becky, Becky came up with it. You actually did the spillway too. I mean, once you kind of recommended, we went over it with Greg and provided what we needed. But the spillway was the best solution because it percolates up and then it will spill and go down into the pipe, which will go down at a lot slower rate than if
Versus
we
just
ran.
piping it down.
Originally, we were gonna put a pipe right from that into a lower unit, a lower dry well. But that was your idea, Becky, to say, put it, you know,
So-
into that.
But the answer to Steve's question about whether Greg agrees with it or not lies in the pipe, in the question that I asked. If he didn't agree with it, y'all wouldn't be getting the pipe for nothing.
Right, exactly.
good point.
So,
Tom, I just want to ask that you initial this as a revised plan, and we'll
Okay.
use this. That way I can reference
Yep.
it. Since we're going to call, it's just our Sturbridge local orders of conditions. I just want something when the certificate of compliance goes out that I can reference, which will
Okay.
be this plan.
Yep.
And just that the homeowners will be responsible for any maintenance. There shouldn't be much of the leaching pit area, but just to
Right.
maintain that.
Okay.
And so if you just, yeah,
If you come up
You
and
don't
sign
have a problem
it.
with that, Chris, all right, maintaining the,
just
Well, I
keeping
guess
it.
my only question there, would be if, since this is a town issue, if there is a longer term problem that this does not solve, would we then, I don't want to agree to liability that I might be able to go after the town for in the future.
Well, you're probably gonna, you're probably gonna want this signature on there and have an as-built long before you're ever gonna resolve it with the town. If he tells you he doesn't know when it went in, I saw it when I was out there. And we've dealt with them before, and it's on your property. You're gonna move it? You're
But
gonna-
it's not actually on my property.
Well, it's coming across your property from
It's
the
an
road.
easement. It's an
Yeah.
easement onto the neighbor's property that then is draining onto mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go around all the lakes and see all of the divides with the, the water coming down out, and it's the way it is.
Right.
I don't know of anybody that's got them to, taken them to court and got them to move it, but
And I
Right.
can't speak on behalf of Department of Public
Yeah,
Works, but I
right.
think Greg's been open to helping resolve this
Yeah.
problem. I guess I was just thinking is if we had this, if we amended our orders of conditions and had you go through that whole process, we'd add a condition in for, a maintenance of some type of thing like this, just like that last project, to make sure
Right.
that it's working and functioning, or it's
Yeah.
cleaned or something like that. That was my only thought on that. I
That
don't
would be
think that
fine
there would
to
be.
maintain the part that is on my property, yes.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't talking about anything,
Yeah.
yeah,
You
no.
know, like clean it if it's where the pipe comes out at the bottom. if
Because
leaves
that's the
block
only,
it or
that's the
something,
only
yeah.
part that is my responsibility, would be what's
Correct.
on my property.
Right.
The
If it's on your
part-
property,
The
that's
other
it.
part is not my responsibility.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We left the pipe open, which is another suggestion we did, instead of completely blocking the pipe in case, because if, in the winter, if they sand the roads and it does come down there, we don't want to create a block where the sand could create a plug and then back up,
Right.
coming out on the road, and then it would come down your driveway, and then you'd have another issue. So
Right.
that way, if the pipe is open, so if they ever have to clean the pipe or get something in,
Right.
they can
In-
get the pipe. And we'll do the same thing in the lower part too, just to make sure it can flow out and filter
Okay.
through the stones.
Right, and it might be in your best interest just to keep an eye on that top one, just in case you don't want that pipe to get blocked.
Right.
And then it's gonna blow out on your property, so.
It's
that's all.
stable, those bigger stones it's very stable, so, I mean, it's gonna hold in together pretty good.
I think you said 6 to 8 originally.
Yeah, some of them are a little even bigger, there was some 10-inch in the bottom that we moved them in.
All right, do you wanna just date right on it, and I'll scan it in, I think that's sufficient, because it's just a sketch anyways. So just, revision
Voted,
date.
You've got it.
Oh, good,
Well,
thank you.
This
No, we have a
one.
second, we haven't voted.
All right.
Well, actually, I stamped this, you brought it in on Friday, that was the 31st? Yeah, the 31st.
Yes, we're still waiting for the
31.
chair.
He probably doesn't know.
Right, and then I'm gonna use this plan, I'll reference it. When your project's done, you have to do a request for a certificate of compliance, and then we'll reference this on there, so that way. All right?
All right, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Welcome, nicely done.
Where to next, Becky? Good.
272 Big Alum?
Yeah,
Yeah.
seems like most people for that, so bring that up next. DEP number 300-953, 272 Big Alum. Jay Howard. Nope. Yep.
All right, I have a lot of plans you've given me, just tell me which ones, when you want them up.
Well, this one would be fine if you had that. That's the
I can't see.
mitigation, well, it's the last ones this morning that came, this afternoon that came in with the distances to the wharf and the concrete counterweight.
Want to introduce yourself and all that stuff?
Come in.
Leonard Jalbert from Jalbert Engineering. I'm here to discuss the remediation for property located at 272 Big Alum, which is the Howard property. What we're here for is basically so we can reach a point for remediation and issue a final plan to the town for a remediation order. Before I do, I just think I'd like to highlight a couple things on the plan itself, and then I'll change it over to Glenn to go through the remediation aspects of it. What has actually taken place here is we're going through about basically 10 steps for remediation. And what we did is this area right here basically is stabilized right now and is staying the way it was in the original order of conditions. This piece right in here to your right-hand side, basically what we're doing there is taking the drainage, putting it in an interceptor drain from here around this side and back out to the catch basin here and discharging it down below. Going through the project itself, basically we...
Are you doing it point by point? Is that the point number one?
No,
I'm just
he's
trying
gonna,
to- you know,
no, he's gonna...
I know
no,
I'm gonna get confused.
He's gonna go through the whole thing.
Okay, all right, okay.
The other thing is, we had a interceptor drain in here. What we're doing is we're adding another one over here on this side. The shed over here in this patio, what we advocate is that we remove this from the site itself. The other was that the retaining wall that is right over here on this side, we would excavate the material on the other side of that wall, take care of all the fill that was put in within the 25-foot and remove it all from the site. The other thing, there was a question on the dock area itself on the fact that they said, quote, use 2 piers here on the side of the dock itself, which was not part of the design criteria. The fact of the matter is there isn't such thing as a pier on the docks. It's not there, it doesn't exist. It's actually a grade beam, which is 2 foot wide, 1 foot deep, 23 feet 6 inches long, which is an integral part of the dock area support system for this dock here and this dock here. So to try to take that out, I would recommend that it not be removed because of the fact that it's not within the water table. It's actually a grade beam that was set on top of the ledge that was in that area there in the stones, and it doesn't penetrate the water itself. I have pictures that can attest to that fact. Also, the grade beam, the ballast that was put in here for the dock support is actually further from the water, which was done on our original plans, from the house to here versus what it is now. It's actually basically set 3 feet further from the lake itself than what was shown on the original plans. Basically, that's it, and what I'd like to do now is then turn it over to Glenn so he can go through maybe the 10 or 7 odd things that he'd like to do for the environment.
Can I get this back? Yeah, yes, thank you, Glenn Kowalski from EBT Environmental. What Lenny was bringing up, we just put this together at my office, these 2 distances. You originally permitted, allowed for in 17, the wharf, the counterweight and then the wharfs. These distances right here is what Lenny's talking about. The second plan I sent over today shows what you originally permitted, which was a little bit more into this area, and you asked that it be moved to the center and amended to get out of this natural vegetation. This is what I hear. And so the point is, if you went to the other plan, you would see what you originally permitted. The 2 of them that I sent at the same time, Rebecca, these 2 red line plans, they were side by side. They should be grouped together. They were sent this afternoon before 2 o'clock.
So, I think you sent all of these plans to me today.
There was 2 plans sent today, and there was 6 pitches. There's one of them. All right.
Is this the one you're talking about?
No, it has these red lines going across, the same red. This is the plan here. This is Lenny's 2017 plan, which was originally permitted in your order of conditions before an amendment. So it showed that the wharf, I only see, it's 2 red lines. They almost look identical.
That's the one I had was showing. So, 1, 2, 3, 4,
You just had it up with the red
Yeah.
lines.
Right, but there was one that looks almost identical to that, and that's this plan. That would not be it. It has a little bump out, if you can see this plan. There's a bump out on that. The wharf and dock system is a little bit further to the south. This is what you permitted again in 17 before the amendment. In fact, the amendment in 17 that you gave apparently didn't require a revision to the plan. What I hear is that you asked that the dock and wharf system be more centered so it would not be within this natural vegetation area. So what would happen, those distances on that original plan, which was permitted.
Was it just moved? Do you remember?
No.
I think that there was conversation at that 2017 about shifting. It's in the minutes, there was some.
To the center.
about
The
it.
way that the existing dock was, it actually, when it was out over the water, it ran, so you'd be on the dock, the vegetation's behind you.
Yeah.
We'll state who,
You asked us to move it up a little bit, so it's out of that area.
we'll state who's talking. That's Justin Howard, but what he's saying about the original dock, here's the original from 10. So that's where it was. Then in 17, it was permitted in this location. That was too much into this natural vegetation that was over here, which we have photos of. So there was a request to move the system over and center it into the lot. What Lenny, so here is that 17 plan that had the original order of conditions with it not centered, it was more to the south. The distances that you originally permitted to the edge of the concrete was 108.85 feet to the edge of the dock, that's the furthest out point of the dock, and 100.84 feet to the counterweight concrete. So what we did was take that plan, we went from a known point, the bump out in the house, the office did. So we showed those two distances. Then, in 2018, during this violation, Lenny went and did as-built of what's going on out there. We'll say it as it is that. And so now we see what was permitted, the movement of the dock system to the center of the lot. And the new distances are 98.67 feet to the edge of the outer edge, the western edge of this deck system, and 99.22 feet to the end of the concrete, which Rebecca and I had talked about, and we all looked under there, and there was a small 4x4 pier holding up this deck. The point that I'm getting at, and Lenny brought it up, was that this new system is further from the lake, or not the distance that originally was permitted, by about approximately 3 feet. At the site inspection, there was a question whether or not this, with the board, whether or not this was further out in the lake.
Okay.
The plan now demonstrates that it isn't, it's actually back.
Talking about the deck.
The deck is closer, is further east, and the concrete pier is further east by 3 feet. And one thing I can say about that is this is an existing altered area, and the stain on the rock, which shows you your mean annual high water, the staining at the high water mark, the concrete is above that, sitting on top of these rocks. So it's also not on the top of the bank. It's on the top of a slope, which is the top of the rock. The slope, mean annual high water to mean annual low water would be the bank. So it technically is not on the bank. It's at the top of the slope, which is the top part of the rock. All I want to get at, it was brought up at the last meeting whether or not we were going to get into this wharf and dock system. And one member, I believe it might have been you, Ed, but had said, I think we're going to leave that and go into these other things. But as Rebecca said, during the last meeting, or during our conversations after the last meeting, was that it was only one member that said that, and maybe that still needs to be readdressed. And that's why I'm bringing up, where is the dock in the deck in relation to what was permitted? And that, this exhibit demonstrates it's actually closer to the house than what was originally permitted. And I guess that is, clearly that's the point I'm trying to make.
So the point is that one thing that you're not changing.
It's only one thing. There's a lot of things on this plan, but I have to get rid of one thing at a time. So
If you can go through the things you are changing.
Well, in case that was a thing that we had to change, we wanted to try to.
I have a couple questions, but if you want to go through your
Okay.
proposal.
Yes, thank you. Can you go back to what?
Hang on a second.
Go on, thank you.
Let's have a conference amongst the conservation commissioners. There are so many items on this plan, changed, not changed, thrown up in the air, thrown down on the ground, stuffed in the water. I think that Rebecca has just brought up an interesting point. What we need to do is attack each one of them as Glenn and Lenny bring them up. We need to talk about them, because at the end, you're going to have 42 items on the desk, and you're not going to know which one to pick apart, and the owner's going to walk away saying, what the heck just happened?
Correct. Well, I'd like to look at the 10 things that they're doing before, and then do that. First of all, what are the 10 things changes they are making?
That's what we're asking him to do, but one at a time so we can discuss them.
Yeah, we can discuss them as we go, with each one, but I want to go through the things they're doing. I want to get a feel for where we're going.
I think you guys are both saying the same thing.
You're the chair.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, that being the point, we're at that one location.
Yeah.
The second, as Leonard, so as far as whether or not that's still on the table, one member had said at the last meeting that it might be off the table. That's all I'm demonstrating. As Leonard had stated, yes, obviously this thing within 50 feet, that shed which was moved from outside the 50 and now is in the 50, that's going. So we'll talk first about mitigation, then we'll go into, at the same time, removal.
You're removing the shed?
The shed is 100% out, yes.
Okay, so
no
there's
amendment.
one.
In the pad. Excuse me. Oh, yeah, the patio associated with the shed also,
Yeah, and
Okay.
Shed and patio out.
out. We have photos from pre-17 that show that the lawn line did end up coming down to here. I sent those to you, Rebecca. Did you get the photos from Staples
Yeah.
this afternoon? There was 6 of them.
No, I didn't
You
get
had
it.
asked that I give you the photos that Leonard Jalbert had taken pre-work, and I said I would.
Yeah, he said that he had photos and I asked,
Well,
yeah,
they
last
came-
week.
They came out of Staples late this afternoon because they had to be scanned in this size.
Did
and
you
it-
email them to me or?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I didn't get them.
Well, you haven't seen them yet.
I have not seen them.
Okay.
I came up here at
I-
5:30 and I didn't have them, just so you know.
Our Gendro at Stir, it was your email address, so you
Okay.
should see them later.
Maybe I
What
have 'em.
they're going to demonstrate is, I guess the one main point is, there was a question during the site inspection, what did it look like down at the water on this, that would be the northwest corner of the property. And that was pre any work in 17. That's the same as it had looked in 10. And presently, at the toe of the slope of the wall that's over here, right in this area, this plan doesn't show it well, but there's a little stone wall here. At the toe, there's still a little piece of natural lawn there, and then it gets into the couple of trees. So if we're talking about this area, and we went around this whole property and say a counterclockwise direction, maybe that makes sense. We do plan on adding the trees, adding the shrubs, all the natural vegetation that is on this property was given to the landscaper, so we can come up with a 2-to-1 sapling replacement. There was already 6 saplings required to be replaced in the 17 plan. With the additional 4 or 5, and I'm not going to claim to know them right off the top, trees that are gone, but they're clearly on the plan by Mr. Jalbert. We'll be placing 2 saplings per tree in areas that we're going to expand outside of the original lawn line up into the 25-foot zone. And as a matter of fact, this plan does not show one of the plans Rebecca has that I modified, which is the green plan, Rebecca, which shows it's got a lot of green in it. I can't. Nope. 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 Right here. So this plan shows this area now being vegetated, which you saw a second ago was not vegetated. It shows this area which that area is vegetated, and there's some in here, but that brings us back to at least that 25-foot zone, which on the 2010 plan, it did show a lawn line all the way back into here. We're proposing to bring that lawn line back. There's a rain garden that we're proposing here, Mr. Jalbert explained, because this lawn area will be running off. We can catch the roof runoff on both sides of those infiltrators, but this front lawn area will then, this will be a dip, removal of fill. We did discover from the old photos that Mr. Jalbert had that the walkway that went over to the original pier, I thought it might have been a walkway over a depression. We have photos of that walkway, and we'll ask for these back when you get a chance, but that walkway is just a walkway that they apparently went to the original deck, and it doesn't show a depression in that, if you could pass that around. And there's the walkway over to the deck. We augured the soil in this area right here and proved that at 18 inches down, it's 10YR44, And that elevation down would be a foot plus below the elevation of this land. We're trying to make a case that this was not a wetland, that little, walkway did not go over wetland. There's a pine tree in that too, but that doesn't mean anything. It just means that I thought that the walkway was going over a depression, and it appears from the plan from 17, there was no depression. Also, Mr. Jalbert did not flag it as a wetland.
You don't
That's
have to
two.
pass it, I
And
see.
three, you allowed part of the counterweight to go into that area that the walkway was
I
in.
don't think it even said it was a wetland.
No, it did come up at last meeting. It was said you put listen to the audio. It said you put fill in wetlands. You
I
put
don't
fill
know.
in vegetated wetland. It is in the video. I watched it.
But I
You
think
put
that
in-
came, no one asked to look there. I think that originally came from you
I
guys.
brought it up.
Right.
And then it did come up at a meeting, at the last meeting we were together, that you put fill in vegetated wetland. And I just bring up 3 points that will show that the area was high and not a depression. It was just an area to gain access over to the deck that was there back from the 10 plan. And that's on the 17 photo before any work was done. I'm just making the point that
Okay.
it wasn't filling wetlands, that's all.
I don't think we disagree with that.
You know, I
there.
think you're losing us here. I think we want to know what you're doing.
Well, it is a lot on this
I think we
plan.
want to know what you're doing. No, but I mean, you're going back, historic photos, I
Well,
don't.
because
I think just, we've been there, we were there when it was rebuilt,
yes,
and we've been there since, and let's go through, we went through and we tried to make it as clear as possible
what you wanted.
what we wanted. And now we want you to say, we're willing to give you this, we're not willing to give you that, so that we can be somewhere.
I hate to say that there's 15 or 18 points on this plan, that if they don't become clear, thank you if they're clear to you. I appreciate it.
I beg your pardon?
Thank you if they're clear to you. Whatever ones I'm saying, so some of this stuff must be clear because I don't have to explain it anymore. I'm trying to explain it to ensure that we don't have problems potentially for what happened in this area where the rain garden. Clear that this was lawn up to this area, and now we're gonna revegetate your 25-foot zone, which you're always looking for, I hear, but you don't want lawn within your 25-foot zone, so we're putting back natural vegetation, the same vegetation that's found along this edge and found over here. Those same species are going back into these areas.
Okay.
That were not in 17, before the work was done, they were not naturally vegetated, some of these areas, and we're bringing them back, as was brought up at the last meeting,
Right,
that there were
okay.
some areas that you're not explaining mitigation. That came up at the last meeting, well, what is mitigation? So in the end, we're trying to show you, yes, things are going, and yes, we are adding in mitigation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's already, this is just on Lenny's plan, and it didn't show up as anything, but that is natural already in some of this area. So Mr. Jalbert will add that in as a natural vegetated area, and then we'll add in this natural vegetation. So you get the 25-foot zone back. We didn't fill in wetlands here, is my other point. That goes, coming back up the side of the
You
house.
filled there.
Huh?
You filled there.
You did not fill the 100-year floodplain. Right, there was.
You filled there.
That is.
Just say
filled.
that. Say that to me. We filled there and we're removing the fill. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Ed, I would never deny that it was filled. I think we.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to.
Justin, please. Sorry. There was never a question whether or not it was filled, because we all stood there. There's not a question that there's fill. The issue-
Okay.
The question, in fact, Mr. Jalbert said we're removing the fill. We said we're putting a rain garden there, so we're gonna make a depression there.
Right.
And the other point that we are getting at, that it wasn't a wetland, nor is it a 100-year floodplain, and could it have been requested under an amendment, and can it still be requested under an amendment? Yes, we're removing fill, but under amendment, we're gonna be adding this point in. Under an amendment, we're gonna be putting this point in, and there will be amendment on this wall, and again, as you said, this is going. The other amendment, there's that infiltrator. We told you at the last meeting that we would give 1 inch in 24 hours. Mr. Jalbert calculated the volume that this could hold, this one. And it can't hold 1 inch in 24 hours for the existing impervious roof runoff. And we are adding and giving you the calculations for that, along with this, so there'll be leaders down here and leaders over here to infiltrate the roof runoff and the deck, so that we are putting it back into the ground. Any water coming down this side of the house, we've added in this thing, which is buried right there, but that's a bioretention area to catch the water coming down the side of the building, which will still be running off from the deck from up in here. And if we move a little bit more to the road, the infiltration that we're gonna be doing through this swale, crushed stone, 1 foot by 1 foot, and Mr. Jalbert can do the calculation on how much that will infiltrate. So this is above and beyond the 2014 letter that Glenn Colburn wrote that said you haven't done the tilting of this back this way, and it's coming on the road, and it's causing icing. And so get it done, or there might be an enforcement order. So this water presently, and I sent plans, we were there during the rain event, this water was coming over the road, over through here, and coming down and coming here, and then eroding down this way. All we're doing is going back to what was Glenn requested at the time, to have this water infiltrate along here, not come on the road. That then does reduce the volume coming here, because it's coming down the road and coming across like this. I sent you a plan on that. So lastly, we infiltrate there. So that is another point of mitigation that Glenn didn't look at, was actually getting infiltration along this back swale. So in all, on my plan, I have 6 points of mitigation. And as I go around, 1, 2, if you can, a little bit more, please. 3, 4 with the new plantings.
Yeah.
5, 6 over here, more plantings, and that was it. It was that area. That could be an extra, but it's outside the 50. I'm more concerned with keeping your 25-foot zone all natural vegetation with just a walkway coming in to the 6-foot wide walkway to get to the pier. So yes, there'll be removal, and I believe that is fairly clear on what we're proposing to put back. This is off of the Condoleezza plan and other plans you have. Give us back the 25-foot zone, but also get rid of things that weren't permitted. Then give an amendment for what we are asking, which would be, again, the amendment would cover the infiltrators and the rain gardens, or these units right here.
Okay.
Not further up in the lake.
All right.
I believe that covers what we're proposing.
All right, Becky?
Okay. I think they've made major improvements to the plan within the 25-foot buffer zone, removing the fill out of there, planting in there, removing the shed. I shared that 2014 letter from the previous agent to you, because that's when the other permit was still open. This area, improving this area was part of that project. So that project was finalized and a certificate of compliance was issued. I hadn't been there before, as I was not here. So my understanding was that was addressed in the last project. So I don't know what the outcome of that was. A final certificate of compliance, a complete certificate of compliance was issued. So I don't know if that was damaged after that or what might have happened. So that's one point. So I don't know.
Could I add one point to that point?
I'd like to finish.
Oh, sorry.
So, like I said, I think that because there was a complete certificate of compliance, my understanding would be that that project was complete. So they would have done that work. Maybe it didn't happen. A site inspection should have been done with that certificate of compliance, as well as, over here you keep talking about the lawn. It might have been lawn, but that last plan for that last project showed that they were putting mitigation there for like a wildflower planting area. So I just want to point that out. Maybe it didn't happen. I don't know. But like I said, a complete certificate of compliance was issued for it. But I think this is great. The improvements there are good for the project, so I think that's a good thing. It's kind of a mute thing about this right now. It doesn't really matter. The one thing I'm asking questions about here is the counterweight. So if you go back to the plan, and this is why I've been kind of asking these questions as I wasn't part of the process before, the buried counterweight is shown here. This is the buried counterweight for the dock. This is the buried counterweight, right, Lenny? That's pointing to that. That's where the buried counterweight is, which may have shifted when the dock shifted, but it's set back. It's way back here. And then, so I'm just from looking at this and then going back to here, you're proposing to put a rain garden where the buried counterweight is. I just don't know, do we have a buried counterweight there? But then this addition wasn't part of the original plan. So that's where my confusion, I guess, is where's the buried counterweight? And if the buried counterweight's there, I mean, this technically wasn't part of the original project, and that's where the question comes. So that's where the question, I think, lies with that is, and whether it's on, you know, where it sits on there. Glenn went out and looked at that. So that's just, those are my comments. Those are my questions about that. I think everything else, they've done a great job to try to mitigate and replace and redo. I just didn't know, based off reviewing the old plan and this, what happened here, and if this is a concern because it is either on the bank or on a portion of the bank up a little bit higher. I don't know. We didn't look at it in detail and look at where the mean high annual water line is or not. So that's my comments for you guys.
Okay. So you're asking them to explain where the counterweight is now?
Right. I think that that's something that needs to be
Yeah.
looked at in a little more detail, so.
Go ahead.
Thank you. If we can take it that the board did ask for it to move the center, yes, the land itself goes inland at this point compared to where it was. Yes, if we can even look at this plan in relation to the house, this land was further out. So when the dock was being proposed in here, and you do have that other plan, it might be buried underneath this one, and when you opened it up, maybe you only saw this, but I gave you both plans. I don't see it on the scroll that you're doing, but when you move this over with this bump out, this land is further, the dock was further out. When you bring it in here, the dock, the building never moved. So with the building not moving, we went from a known point out to where now the counterweight is in the edge of the dock, and it is closer to the house than what the original dock and pier was. And the plan doesn't lie. We'll have Mr. Jalbert at least give the distances from this bump out to, which I have on both plans.
The question that she,
Plan is.
the question that she asked, is the buried counterweight
Yes.
in the ground there as it was on the plan?
You never had a plan. When you gave the amendment for the plan.
Is there a buried counterweight in the
Yes.
ground?
Yes.
Okay.
The way that they did it was there's a buried counterweight, there was a buried counterweight that with, technical term, screws coming out of it. They attached the steel beams, the buried counterweight.
Right.
Then they encased it over the top with more concrete.
Right, okay.
That's how it was, and I think
That answers the question.
Is that underneath the
it's
deck?
Yes, that's what kind of sits underneath the deck. So there's a buried counterweight, then the beams attached to that, then there's that other portion. So it creates one, obviously, mass,
So-
but it might look like two.
So this is connected to the counterweight? Because it's just
Yes.
shown on here.
Yeah, so that's what encases the steel beams on top. That makes sense.
Thank you. But if you take this line and you just run this line as a straight line down, you can see where the land is thicker here. And so the point being is these distances on what was proposed when it was here and then requested through amendment moved, the shoreline is tighter to the building here. But the actual counterweight in the deck is further inland by these few feet. And we'd asked Mr. Jalbert on his final plan to show that there's 2 to 3 feet, 184 to the counterweight now, and it was 99.22 to the counterweight under the proposed plan that didn't ask for, I don't know how it got an amendment without a proposed plan.
Well,
but-
this was the plan that was referenced in the amendment. It was this plan. This is the plan that,
Well, didn't it come down through the request from the board that they wanted it more centered, and in the end, that plan might be referenced, but if you look back, why was there an amendment? The amendment was for the movement of the dock to the center of the property. I shut that off, I swear I did.
well, I think the amendment was to add a dock. There was no dock. All the work was out of the 50-foot buffer zone. So the amendment
Was to add a dock.
the amendment was to add a dock.
Yeah, then it was, right, then.
Paul?
Yeah, I tell you, to me, this boils down, this is much too complicated for my simple brain. But what bothers me is this. You started out with a plan. Step one. Step two, they ignored that plan and did whatever else they wanted to do to make it look better or feel better or whatever. And then now we're at step 3.5, which is, okay, we've got this stuff put in there, let's try to fix it and make it better. But what bothers me from the beginning is that the whole thing is sort of done willy-nilly. I mean, it was like, okay, we created something that no one approved, so now let's go ahead and create something else that's different, and you guys should go ahead and approve it. And I'm bothered by this whole process, really.
Well, I feel that we gave them guidance,
Yeah, we gave them guidance.
and we're trying to go through those points.
I understand that, but I really think that somehow we're missing something here, and that is that they went ahead and they did something that was really not approved, and so now we're giving them guidance to make it right. But there's still, we're skipping the part that says, you know, you guys did, you created something on your own without getting our approval, and now you're saying, okay, we've done some fixing, now approve it. And we may do that, but it bothers me.
Okay, that's a fair point. I think we have to move forward, but I think it's a fair point. You know. Steve?
I appreciate the amount of work that you guys did to bring this thing back to what was permitted. I've got one issue, and it's that big piece of white concrete that's right there. I got down and I looked under there to see what is the purpose of this, what was that, 25, 26, 20 feet? I don't remember.
23 feet, 6 inches.
Wow, all right. Spoken like an engineer, learning very well. Okay, here, seriously. So I get down and say, what is this massive piece of concrete doing? There are 2 4x4s sitting under there, and this piece of concrete, to me, is like totally superfluous. And I will tell you, I'm the one who took the call, that complaint, and it was that piece of concrete that was the biggest aggravation. And so that was what I was really focusing on. And everything else, I think you've done a great job of repairing, fixing things that were not necessarily, you know, that revegetating or not revegetating, vegetating areas. I think all that's great, but that piece of concrete, I do not understand why that was put in there. 2 sauna tubes with a, you know, would have done it. And that, Mr. Chairman, is my problem, is that leaving that piece of concrete in there, I think is problematic to the, to this project.
Mr. Barnick?
There's not much that I can say. If I had the plans so that I could spend the time that these people spent on it, but the plans were sent out this afternoon and even Becky didn't get them.
Well, we did get plans Friday that was
We got
sent
some
out.
plans.
Three sets of plans came in. This was the last set of plans because I didn't get to Mr. Job in time to just show these distances to the concrete into the pier. So
Okay.
that's all that came in.
But you spent the first 15 minutes of your presentation, Glenn,
Yes.
describing what you sent in tonight. And none of us have had a chance to review it or be able to understand it.
Well, yeah, there was only one point that you needed to understand in his first 15 minutes, and that was the distance from the house to where the dock is.
Is less.
That was it, over and over again. That was what he was talking about. But, Stephen, Dave, you all set?
Oh, I'm sad.
Yeah, I don't think I have any additional, so, I mean, could you sort of explain that concrete? Is that part of the counterweight system? Is that what?
I'm not sure. I'd have to talk to the landscaper that put it in, why that particular piece is, sorry. I'll have to talk to the landscaper to see why that particular piece is
You know
there.
when it was put in?
At the same time, yeah, so that,
When was that?
So it was put in at the same time that the,
As the counterweight.
Can you back that back, Becky?
Yeah.
What?
To
Is
the
it
deck,
plan?
is that, have you got a picture of the back portion of that?
Connected to the counterweight.
no,
I looked under there.
It's not.
it's not connected to the counterweight.
And I don't know.
I crawled under there.
So
Great
that's
peril. Didn't buy a
over
swing.
here.
You said it was. Let me see.
The,
Sort of just sitting there,
if
really.
you,
So that's probably the best thing. I think the counterweight should be back here, right? And that little piece is
Yeah.
down here past this boulder, I think.
right.
That's what, the way I saw it, that when I looked under it at one time, and then I was told by the client through the engineer, through the landscaper who built it, he said it was part of it. But my glance, and I didn't go and look at it again when I was originally with the board, was that it appeared to be a separate slab.
Yep.
And that's what
That
you
was
saw.
my-
so-
my comment
And
also.
then I originally thought that maybe if we went after it, then it would be some kind of tube just holding the two ends up. So I think it should be revisited, another set of eyes on it again, look under there, and if that becomes the sticking point, then that clearly would need to just be looked at one point.
Well, wouldn't it be easier to just ask the person to put it in?
You can crawl under there and
I did.
look. It's not connected.
I did, I went through the client to the,
Who-
to the.
Do you know who
sorry.
did it?
Mark Levine.
Yeah, the landscape guy. He did all the work out
You just
there.
had to hear the first meeting.
We'll have eyes on it within 24, 48 hours after this, because that becomes the bugger.
Yeah,
I think
and
if you
agree
just-
with you. It doesn't,
Yeah,
doesn't look like it's
I didn't
connected.
think it was myself.
And I just want to say I do appreciate all the work you've done to try to,
Mitigate.
mitigate this and remediate it.
Because if I have to say the one thing, Ed, again.
What about
to
the
Jim,
wall behind that slab? Are you removing that?
The,
This one?
Yeah.
we were,
That wall was put in to backfill up against.
on the upslope side of it was the rain garden, and we were
Right.
going to propose, I know we talked about it at the last meeting, and the applicant was asking that, could that, with enough mitigation, putting this 25-foot zone back intact prior to '09, prior to the original plans, and the rain gardens, and the infiltration, and the shed going, and if I get back to the other side of the road with the 14 letter, I just need to say that he did not call for infiltration, Glenn, originally. So even if it was built on the other side of the road, as Glenn had brought up in the letter, it didn't call for infiltration, and we're adding that in. So even if it got a certificate, it's going back to stone, and it's going to have infiltration upgrade inside. And so that is one point that wasn't, that I didn't see anything that said that we were going to do that before. So I'm adding a point beyond the stone that was brought up in the 14.
And it's really good that you're doing that, but I don't know what else you'd do.
What else?
I said, I don't know what else you'd do if you didn't put infiltration up there.
It would just be a swale running around the backside and bringing the water back over down the road in the northern direction.
Right.
Right.
We just built an infiltration on a driveway
Yeah.
in Sutton, similar to this. We called out the calcs on how much we were infiltrating, a foot by a foot in certain stone, and it had to be more. But yes, it could just be a swale with thin stone.
Yeah.
And it just does not call for as much infiltration as we can easily address through a crushed stone block of, down through
Yeah.
that swale. So there is something you can do
Good.
beyond that. So that's why I added it as another
My,
piece of
my,
mitigation.
just, if you drop into a canoe and you take a loop around Big Allen, okay, you will find, or a lot of lakefronts, you will find the type of dock that they have very common. I think it has excess cement in it, there's no question about it. It's a dock patio type scenario, but you will find that it's the I-beam construction. There was a guy down in, what was the baseball player's name that got killed by one 3 years ago down in Atlanta, outside Atlanta, water skiing, and he hit one of those I-beam constructions. They just come out of this, the land, and they can't leave it, and they need a lot of cement in order to offset what you're going to have on the dock and so forth and so on. And we approved it. We didn't approve this one exactly. They did it in excess, but we approved it. And that said, I really would hate to see it dug out. I don't think it helps Big Alum to take it out. You might jackhammer some of it out the back or something like that if it has some kind of a punishment, but I don't think it's I don't think it's worth, I mean, if we can get the other things done, I think that, and as I say, you can borrow my canoe and go around, because they all have that structure.
You know, that's a great design, and I love it that they've got that huge piece of concrete in the back that is counterweight, and it's out of sight, it's out of mind, it's a beautiful dock. I was out there during construction, talked to the guys building it. I think it's awesome. I said, what is this giant piece of concrete for? That was the call that I got about what's going on. They're pouring this big chunk of concrete right on the bank. What is that for?
Well, it's Galileo that said that if you had a bar long enough, you could lift the earth.
Well, okay, thank you. I take my argument back, because Galileo, I always loved him. No, Ed, that, okay.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just saying that,
Okay, that is fine, but that is gonna be a bone of contention. There is no reason for it. When I mentioned why do they have that, somebody agreed with me. And they said, they have no idea why that was put in there when you've got two little 4x4s. Somebody said, yeah, why, I don't know why they did that either. So, one man's opinion, and that's all I'm saying, is my opinion that piece of concrete needs to go, and I want to just be on record for that. And, the board is the board, I'm only one member, but
20% of the vote.
20%, man, I tell you, I'm important. So anyway, that's my thought.
Anybody in the audience? No. Want to close the public hearing?
We don't have, this isn't a public hearing.
We can't.
We can't? Oh, this is not a public hearing anyway, right?
Yes.
Just having discussion before they
This is a
go to amend.
courtesy
Okay, all
visit, right?
Well, as I say, I think, although Glenn has confused me a great deal, I think pretty much everything we talked about is in there, with the exception of the dock. And I did say at the last meeting that I would prefer not to tear that out, just because of what it would do.
But you've already made that point.
No, I know, I wasn't,
Yes, you were.
forgive me.
And Mr. Chairman, I would say that this could be done without having an impact on the lake. He knows how to do it without causing an impact on it. I just want to say, for the record, that that's fine, but I don't think that it would have an impact on the lake.
But this is not a formal.
Yeah, but let's just, are the four of you, are you for?
That's not legitimate, Ed.
Just that, we have to give them some kind of a, they're gonna come back with a.
Okay, and I would say that I am in agreement with everything that you guys have presented. I think you've done a good job of coming back in. I hear you, I agree with you. Wait a minute, why? It's been repaired, but I just, again, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I like everything except leaving that giant piece of concrete that serves no purpose. Well, serves a purpose, but it's way overkill. So anyway, if you're looking for opinions.
We don't do straw votes on this committee. We never have.
Just looking for guidance, Dave, that's all.
Yep. In the 2.5 centuries you've been on it, we've not done one single straw vote.
Oh, yeah, we have.
Are you doing a straw vote, or are you just having a
No,
discussion?
we're not.
You're just having a discussion.
Yeah. So that's where we're at.
We want to come back and get this amendment, request for amendment, a plan by Mr. Jalbert that addresses and shows these things on this plan, and notes that Mr. Jalbert put, these additional notes that I put out there, maybe even just a little bit of the distances, showing how that actually worked and why it's out there. And that amendment will be written up within these next 10 days filing fees, whatever it is, a butter note, we already called out for the butters list so that we could move forward. And we are aware, I just came into the project when it was like this, so I just want to say, as you know, so I'm only here to give the mitigation which was asked for, to possibly allow for a couple of things that were left out, that don't exceed the bylaw, I believe it still can be within the bylaw, not filling 100-year floodplains and things like that. That could have been asked for up front, but weren't, and now I am playing catch-up, and Mr. Jalbert is.
Very good. All right, thank you.
Nicely done. Nicely done, guys.
We'll move forward with this plan, and I guess we'll have the discussions with the hearing hold and stuff.
Yeah, as long as you address the items that are on the enforcement order.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Very good.
And in keeping with this, it's some.
And take an eraser to your arrows.
Take your what?
Take an eraser to your arrows.
Oh, my God.
I love those.
No, there's no hearing, this is an informal discussion.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now.
Well, no, they have to,
You have to submit.
They have to submit.
they have to submit for an amendment, they have to do legal ad notification, a butter notification, so.
Yeah, let's just clarify that.
No, logistically, it doesn't work.
What doesn't, Lynn?
No, you've got 14 days between now and your next meeting.
Right.
We agree.
And then the newspaper ad is only on Thursdays.
Is this Tuesday going to be a problem for you?
You don't have to use the Southbridge Evening News, Lenny.
My goal would be to have the paperwork filed for your next meeting so you can give us a hearing in 2 weeks or whatever the meeting is after that, so that we have sufficient time, because we don't have sufficient time to get it in to have a hearing on the next meeting. We understand that, Lenny.
Okay, good.
I think the board is going to work with us, I think, on that, to get it in.
2 meetings.
Give me a deadline, okay, I have a deadline of 2 weeks, Leonard has a deadline, please get me the plan, and we'll come back in and file it, and then we can, the next meeting.
And Lenny,
Yes.
tell him what you just said.
You don't have to use the Southbridge Evening News. You can use the Telegram Gazette, which publishes more often, so you can still meet the 5 business
Did you
days.
ever, just as a quick scenario.
$75, that's all.
We went to the town of Brimfield to get a legal ad. It cost me $51 in the town of Southbridge for the ad. The girl said, well, why don't you just put it in the Springfield paper? Okay, fine. We get the bill back from the Springfield paper, $385.
Oh, my
Well, you can put it in whichever paper you like, as long as it's published 5 days.
No, that's
5
called a
days in
Republican.
advance.
No, the paper, 'cause I just bought it over in, Warren, I was in Warren, and it's called the Republican. We'll stick with the Telegram if we have to.
Yeah.
And the Telegram is 75 or 80, whatever it is, I mean, it does matter because it's my client's money, but we'll work to get it in your local paper.
Jeez. $300.
$385 for Springfield.
They saw that you were.
We ought to start a newspaper.
Is there any update on the Chapter 91?
An update on the Chapter 91, if you could.
I'll find out. I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Okay.
What has your action been?
My action?
Yeah, I mean, you can't talk about DEP maybe, but what is your action? What's an update on what's going on in Chapter 91? What have you done?
So yes, so we've submitted it. So I had submitted it. God, it's 8 weeks or so ago. I'm just waiting to hear back from them about the Chapter 91. So
What to say any more on that? I have been
Busy on the thing, but I'm going to take it up and also call DEP and see where they are. And I thought there was maybe, and just to make sure it's complete. So it was sent over to me. If the DEP's a little slower on that, because they've got a lot of them, they cover the whole state, I don't know. Worcester County only covers Worcester County Chapter 91, so I think.
Right.
It doesn't cover the whole state. So we'll follow up and find out where it is.
there was an online, like a homeowner version that I tried to complete myself, but it sent it to Boston. Then Glenn said I could have sent it into Worcester. So I'm trying to figure out if I did it right
Worcester
or wrong.
DEP would be one.
We'll follow up.
So-
Okay, thank you. But you did
Thank
submit
you.
it, and that's what we wanted to hear.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
We did.
Thank you.
We had, never mind, we won't say anymore. Thank you again, appreciate it.
Nice.
Glenn, your
Say
pictures, your pictures right here.
You know, I've tried to send things from Staples, no offense to Staples. And they have not gone.
Well, a bit, the Auburn branch is much more proficient.
We gotta move along here.
Move on.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time. And let-
Thank you.
listen.
Take it easy.
Sorry about that.
Attorney O'Neill, you're paid probably too much.
I'm just gonna get another drink of water.
Right.
My vocal cords are. Gentlemen, you're up.
What are we on now?
Here,
And despite previous performances, that is not a hot seat.
Steven, that
That's a
in the
hot seat.
water?
What are we doing here?
That's water.
Oh, hair road.
Counterweight, not in the water.
Right. Well,
Like, I don't know
they
if
said
it-
it's not part of the counterweight, so.
Well, I think he said it was like attached somewhat somewhere underneath there, but
Oh, boy.
in the water. Welcome back.
We didn't find it.
So, I mean, I don't have anything to put up here unless you want me to put the landscape plan up here. I mean, they have copies of your remediation plan, but, so I'll let you begin. You guys can start.
Sure everyone knows why we're here.
You do need to introduce yourself, even though we know you.
My name is Steve Herzog. I'm with AMEC, which is the engineering firm working for the project owner, BWC. And we had a little unfortunate accident at the site where there was a miscommunication between the owner and the contractor. And a small number of trees were cut on the wrong side of the pink BBW flagging. It's a very small area, probably less than half the size of this room. The contractor realized their error right away, stopped work. Since that time, the commission's monitor, Art Allen, went out to the site. We had a site meeting last week with Becky and Art and the project owner, Ray, and the contractor, Mayor Tree Service. And we prepared a restoration plan, which Becky reviewed and Art Allen reviewed, provided comments. We submitted it in final form this past Friday. I think you've seen it, Becky said?
Yep.
So what we'd like to do is remove all the slash from the wetland, using the cut materials from the wetland, replace the cut trees in the wetland at a ratio of 2:1, all under my observation and Art Allen's observation during the work, and monitor these restored areas for 2 growing seasons. We would also request that the commission allow us to proceed with this as soon as possible so that we can get these materials out of the wetland, complete the tree cutting that was permitted under the order of conditions as rapidly as possible so that we can perform the replanting that was also permitted, replanting with shrubs in the areas to be cut during the fall, which is the ideal time to plant woody materials. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Do you want to start with
Becky?
Becky?
Oh, do you just
He's done.
want to talk about what happened? Why? Just explain to them.
Who was overseeing the project that it went so awry? I mean, the no-touch area implies something, and it does not imply a cut area. So who was overseeing this? That a guy went in with a chainsaw and didn't know it was a no-touch area?
That was the miscommunication.
No, that's not miscommunication. Miscommunication is an excuse. What's the reason?
The reason is the contractor was there without specific oversight. There was a miscommunication from the owner to the contractor as to when to start.
There was no specific plan that said you don't go into this 25-foot area?
There was.
And it was in his back pocket?
I cannot say that for certain myself.
Doesn't our order of conditions specifically indicate that the plan will be on-site at all times?
It does.
Right, it's probably
yeah.
one of our general conditions.
And
had
so it was
several
not.
others.
So part of the reason, not the excuse, is because you all didn't provide the plan to the guy and make sure that he had it available. We've been through this so many times with this operation. You can't come in here and say, we fired the bulldozer operator. That doesn't work. Now, you're giving us a replan. How do we know somebody's going to be doing an oversight on that one?
So David, so I can explain. Ray Hanna with BWC Origination Aid LLC. We were anticipating to get a amended order of conditions to take down the trees. And in that anticipation, we had AMEC go out and flag those areas as was requested by the order of conditions. I met with Art and Rebecca 2 days prior to what we were anticipating to be the scheduled date for permission to cut. Rebecca specifically told me, I do not have all the signatures, you cannot cut. That information was relayed to Mayor Tree Service, and that's why they did not have a plan in their back pocket, and there wasn't supervision because they were not supposed to be on site. So without any excuses, that is what happened. We gave them, orders to have us ready in their queue for that particular Thursday. We did not get the order of conditions, the amended order of conditions, and by the time I had sent Mayor Tree Service, please, you cannot be on site, don't cut, and that's where the miscommunication happened. So we gave them this, I don't want to say stand down, but we told them, do not go in. They had already had us on the book, and that's when they came in. And that's why there wasn't supervision, because there was supposed to be nobody on site. And that's the long and the short of it is the reason to answer your question.
If you had had the plan, would they have still cut the same trees?
Absolutely not. We would have been on site. I was on site monitoring the culvert restoration process of it, and both myself and everybody that was involved in that particular piece, we had specifically gone from the mosquito ditch area that we restored to the primary or the large culvert, box culvert, and then over to the other culvert. We did not proceed over into the South Array area because we were not looking to do work in that area, and that's where the crossing of the wires occurred.
Thank you. So with your restoration plan, who will be overseeing the project?
So we've, at the recommendation of both the environmental monitor and Rebecca, we will both be on site, meaning AMEC will be on site.
Who from AMEC will be on site?
Steve Herzog specifically.
Okay, so you're one of the AMEC people? You're one of the 5?
One of,
I don't understand.
AMEC is located where?
Our office is in Chelmsford.
Chelmsford. Because I understood that there were 5 employees there.
5? No.
No.
It's a large firm.
Okay.
This is a very large.
This is part of Foster Wheeler, isn't it?
AMEC and Foster Wheeler merged a few years ago, yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
and have subsequently been taken over by Wood, but they
So
still
we're still
operate as
AMEC.
Foster Wheeler.
Okay.
And Steve's gonna be there.
That's all that counts. As long as we have somebody that we know is going to be overseeing the project.
So Steve will be there daily.
Steve,
to
you already knew
oversee.
somebody that was overseeing the project.
Ray already explained that.
Art will still be monitoring and,
I think we should go look at the site before we make a decision. Take a look at what they did. I'm hearing 2-to-1 mitigation, which is twigs against trees, I assume. right? 2 to 1,
We
you know.
proposed two stems for every one that was cut.
Right.
Large caliper, so 2-inch DBH.
Yep.
Yeah.
The trees that were cut, I didn't measure them myself, but they were not all huge diameter trees. They were, you know.
But some of them were.
Do you know Dan, what the sizes are?
Some were big,
Yeah.
some were big. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
So we really don't get mediation out of this. We can compromise. That's what we get. We have to compromise. You guys cut down some big trees in our wetland so that your solar panels work better. And that's where it's at, right? You can, not attitude, that's where it's at.
Ed, to your point, those trees should not have come down. They weren't even part of what we needed to have cut. And so for that, we're taking full responsibility. There was no reason, even if we were in there to cut, we should not have touched those trees. And so for that, we understand that that's whatever the compromise or
See,
whatever.
the way I'd like to compromise that is I'd like to go in now and take some of those trees that you had planned on cutting within the 25 feet and leave them. The same number of trees, the same diameters that you cut in our wetland, I'd like to leave in that 25-foot buffer zone. That would be equitable. What you're talking about is, basic, you know what you call it. Just
So
not rational.
your thought process is within the 25-foot buffer zone, if we see 9 trees of similar diameter that were cut in the wetlands, that we keep those, and so we wouldn't top those off as the amended.
Right. Particularly when they're near where you cut in the wetland, because that's an area that needs help. And the twigs you're gonna put in there, and you're gonna monitor for a couple of years, I mean, that's gonna make them grow fast, I'm sure. Isn't gonna do it. It's gonna be heating up the wetland while you're doing it.
I believe there's enough in the 25-foot buffer zone on the northern eastern slope area that can be done.
Yeah.
The one thing that we would request is that we would like to get I don't want to say trimmings, the slash out of the wetlands as quickly as possible. If you would allow that, we would want to move that out of the wetlands as soon as possible.
Why?
It was one of the recommendations that the environmental monitor gave us, that stuff be removed out of the wetlands as
Don't want
quickly as
it in there.
possible.
Why?
Because it impedes the progress of the organisms that are supposed to be able to use that for a breeding ground.
And there's a lot down, it might be killing vegetation underneath it
Yeah.
too, so some of that potentially should come out.
I think removing
Yeah.
the slash is a good idea.
If that was Art's recommendation too.
I'd like to take a look at it. I'd like to do a site visit
Slash is
next
one thing.
Tuesday.
A big piece of tree.
I don't see any
like this
reason.
is totally different, but,
Right.
I mean, I see slashes being small stuff, but. I have a comment.
Sure.
It goes to the fact that somebody's in the wetland. The edge of the wetland should have been marked. And the edge of the wetland is like a very debatable thing. We end up with a line, we all agree on it. It's not rocket science, but it's also not like real black and white. But what is black and white is you're standing there looking at these flags. Over here is water, and over here is land. Over here is the solar panels. Over here is water. How do you not think that you're in a wetland? And that's my comment, because I've been here many times in the past, in my past life, and I said, how did you not think that that was the wetland? Here's the water over here, and here's not water. So I just say, shame on whoever got in there that did that, and for who knows what reason, but there's no excuse to why they did not know that they were in a wetland. And it's not part of anything other than the fact that somebody has to have some little bit of retraining when they go into a site. You know, and that's my past experience, is that I was the guy who went and did the training. So somebody needs to.
We do have that in this mitigation plan, that everybody that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's right. You're absolutely right. The pink flags were in place, but, and this is not an excuse, it's just what happened. The crew was not aware, apparently, of what the pink flags meant, because they were out there without supervision.
They weren't trained. They were not supposed to be
trained.
there, so
Okay.
there was nobody there to train them their
Okay.
first day. The first day that we went to do the first set of cutting that we did, I was out there specifically with the crew over on the southern portion of that, and Rebecca and Art both saw what they did over there, and that was done true to form, to the order of conditions, the amended order of conditions, to what our request was, to the training, and they were given specific instructions that if they had thought twice about cutting a tree, don't cut it. The minute you start thinking about should I or shouldn't I, don't. And that was, it was infused into their brains that that's what they were supposed to do. Unfortunately, a couple of weeks prior to that, they had done, another crew had done that. So the crew that they brought in that particular day, when Art finally noticed, because he came in that afternoon, when he saw the work that they had originally done, it was good work. It was the work that was in the order of conditions. It was at the height. You know, the trees were girdled. Everything was laid down properly. They cut each tree one at a time so that it fell properly, under control, and did what it was supposed to do according to the amended order of conditions.
Well, my only follow-up comment is that a company that sent somebody out with chainsaws in Massachusetts, and they didn't know what a pink flag meant, I mean, that is huge. I mean, I cannot fathom that some company would set
What do you want to
a
do here?
team loose, but I've said that and I'm done, but wow.
I agree with you. I think it would be good to go see what was done. I appreciate the offer to maybe, in kind, to leave some of the trees that are in the 25-foot buffer to compensate, because I agree with you. We can't have, these mature trees replaced with, a 2-inch tree and have it, call it even. So, yeah, I agree. We should probably have a site visit to.
But we need to think about the fact that the trees that were cut were in a wetland. And unless you replace the trees in the wetland, you don't get the shading
We can do both.
qualities.
We can do both.
So I think you have to have both.
Yeah, no problem.
That's fine.
I think you also have to make sure that everybody who goes in there has gotten training first, that they know what they're doing.
And I would say if Art Allen recommended that the slash be removed, I
I'd
Go with Art.
Yeah,
Go with
whatever
Art's.
works.
Yeah.
And quickly,
Yep.
because
All
we
right,
can get
so-
more water quickly.
We will stay a decision on this and do a site visit on our next Tuesday site visit.
We have a cease and desist though, so
So
we
we'll
have to
leave it in
give them,
place.
we have to give them permission though to remove the
Yep.
slash, right?
Right, we can do that, yeah.
Okay.
But don't,
I definitely
don't
think
start
that
cutting.
we should have a consensus, Mr. Chairman, about removing the slash quickly.
all in favor of removing the slash?
I have one comment before we do that. It's important is how they move the slash. What kind of piece of equipment did they go in there? They cannot leave ruts. Ruts cause
It says in their,
It's described in the restoration.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, they
no,
have-
It's in there.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's my problem. I've been trained better.
number 3.
Contractor will remove the slash from the wetland using hand tools.
And a winch.
Winch.
Okay.
With oversight?
I apologize that I did not
Yeah, with oversight would
analyze
be
this.
a definite addition.
Steve, you're gonna be there for that one too?
Okay. Don't leave ruts because it will cause erosion.
All right?
So Ed, just to be clear, the nine trees that were taken down, you're going to look for 9 trees within the buffer zone to keep. Is that a fair statement?
We're gonna look at the statement. No, I think we'd have Art pick those out for us. I mean, that would be the way we'd probably want to go. I don't know, we haven't decided that as a committee, but we're going to take a look at what was done as a committee, see how what has been done looks.
I'm sorry.
And we might recommend to Art, the closest to the wetland if you can.
Right.
Would be the best. It would help them, because the whole
Yeah.
purpose was.
Right.
Right.
So I think, and it would help, it'd be a nice compromise.
We don't want to unreasonably, intrude on what you're trying to accomplish,
No.
but we do want to protect the wetland. So.
And we want to be good stewards.
Excellent.
Appreciate that.
You guys need to train your crews.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
You have to forgive the outburst, but since Blue Wave first came several years ago, this project has
Yeah.
treaded more water, if you'll pardon a really bad pun at this time.
And I appreciate your patience. We wanted to be in planting mode at this point, and unfortunately, as soon as we can get this done, my key focus right now, more so than the cutting, is the planting on both sides, so.
Okay.
As soon as we can get a decision, I want to release the contract for landscaping, at least on the Appleby side along
Well, that's
roadway.
outside our
The
burb.
landscape buffer, the original area next to Applebee's, I don't think there's any concern to.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it would help us, because then I can make that whole.
They'll do everything at one time, won't they?
And do the stuff at least within
Yeah.
according to this mitigation plan, to do the planting in the areas that are recommended for the replacements.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Do we have anything else?
No, I don't think we do, we're all
I
done.
just want to talk about that, the Silver Tree, 550 Route 15, the cease and desist we issued.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Yep.
We're just cease and desist season, I guess, now. So, we talked about this last time. This is the forestry site that Ed and I went out to when Steve was gone. This is I'm gonna zoom out a little bit, sorry. So this is a large project site. There's an existing house here. This company bought the whole parcel. They don't own this, the state owns this. There's A&R lots here. They actually go all the way up here. The plan will be to up here, and I can show you that plan too. So the forestry is back here, which we're okay with. But when we went out there, this whole front has all been cleared, or a portion of this. We don't know the extent. We haven't seen a tree line. It's not clearly marked which lots, where it is. So we went out here, parked here, walked down the access ways through here. This was all cleared up to here. On the forest cutting plan, this is a wetland delineated here, but it shows something coming all the way.
Sorry. It just occurred to us, we were not really clear. Did the commission vote to allow us to remove the cut material from the wetland?
Yes.
The slash, yes.
Yes, we
Yeah.
did.
Like, per your,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
per your
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
So this was all shown as a potential wetland on the forest cutting plan. So we went out there and it was cut all the way to here. And all the way out here, we didn't know where. So we asked for some additional information. They said, oh, we're submitting an ANRAD to you. And he's like, well, can you send us any information until that time? You really should have done that beforehand, et cetera. So I've gotten a few things from them. This plan just came in today. So I got a delineation report, which called out, I'll show it on here because this is pretty busy, but
Ooh, map around there.
all right, so we'll start. So the delineation report called out 2 potential isolated wetlands, one here, one here. This one's pretty small, but it called out that the might have the potential or whatnot. You can read the report. This doesn't show the tree line of where they cut. So going out there, I mean, it looked like they potentially cleared within over here, our buffer zone. I've been told they've only cleared up to here, which I'm not sure. So these 2 lots, they're moving forward, developing. They've got approved septic plans, there's wells out there. This, in addition to stuff over that way, has been cleared. So based off of their delineation report, these 2 areas have potential. I mean, it's hard to tell if anything could have been here. I mean, the only thing, looking at contour lines is, is this feeding into here? What's there? We don't know. It might be nothing, but we just don't know. There's not enough information. I don't have any pictures of what it looked like. It's all cleared, so I can't
Yeah.
tell. So we also over here, this is where this feeds down. So this was called out as a wetland here, behind the existing houses here. And then you can see this looks like it drains all down here.
Yep.
And this is what was called out on the forest cutting plan. So it's all cleared here. So I've been working with them and I'm like, well, right, 4 and 5 may be out of our area, but we don't know based off the information you gave us.
Right.
Your guy is saying this isn't jurisdictional, it could have potential, we don't know, we haven't seen it, you've cleared here. We issued a cease and desist letter, said submit your ANRAD, et cetera. So I got an email this evening, right before I came up here, with the plan I just showed you. They said that, they want to move forward with lots 4 and 5. They believe they're out of our jurisdiction based off of their consultant that went out there. So their consultant called this a wetland. They didn't call this, which it may not be. We just don't have enough information to say that. So they put a 200-foot buffer zone off of this and a 200-foot buffer zone off of these 2 potential things in case. So this is 4 and 5, which is outside of that area. They said they're lined up to do their work, and it's a hardship that we're putting them in because they can't do their work. Their wetland delineation report date was dated November 2017, so it should have been submitted to us after that. And I did say that if you had submitted it then, we could have reviewed this and potentially ruled out lots 4 and 5. Lots 4 and 5 may not be within our buffer zone, but I don't know. If they're like, we'll be happy to meet you in the email today, we'll be happy to meet you guys out there and walk the site. These are cleared. I had recommended earlier that they could have someone else kind of review what was looked at, go out there and take a look at the site, and maybe that would help
Make the case.
exactly for 4 and 5. But at this point, I don't know. We can go out there and take a look at it.
That's not our job.
Yeah.
I know. I just don't know. This might not be something here, but if it is, then we have a buffer zone over here. So, and that's what I said to him. I said, I don't know based off that, and I don't know where their tree line is. They say they didn't clear 3, which may be the case, but I think having a plan that shows the tree line, and if they took my recommendation and had another consultant maybe go look at the report and go out there and look at it, maybe we could release 4 and 5 and say that the appears it's
Yeah.
outside, but we just don't have that information at this time. So,
What's the frontage on those lots?
150.
yeah, I think
I'm
it's
just
on
trying
the
to figure
other
out the
one.
scale.
Yeah,
Because some of those slopes look pretty steep. I don't know
yeah.
if that would kick in our 500-foot.
No,
No?
no.
Okay.
From what I walked, anyway, from what we
Okay,
walked.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, what they've been doing is going in sideways with the excavator and messing them all up. Going in, if there was a wetland plant in there, they crushed it.
Yeah, these are completely cleared, so you can't tell
So
anything.
We don't even know,
Yeah.
because, there could have been something here, right? Maybe, I don't know.
There could have
looks
been
like it
something
could be.
here, but they're saying this lot's not cleared. Here, I think that, this is where we walked up. I don't think that, oh, no, we walked up here, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we went up this way. So we didn't walk over here, and this is, like I said, it's all cleared.
Right, so
For
we
a
don't
good
know.
portion of it, so I don't know.
There's definitely a wetland flow that comes down through here.
So what are they requesting us to do that's already been cleared?
Leave them alone and let them build.
Right,
Build, okay.
4 and 5.
Yeah.
They're ready to build on
Yeah.
that,
We're holding up their construction.
okay. And if we go in there and we find something that indicates a wetland there, then what would be the placement of the houses that they're gonna build, or not build them at all?
Will they come go out there with you, Becky? Will they send a wetland scientist to go out there with you? Whoever did the wetland delineation?
Well, they said that they've contacted the person who's done the delineation. He's working on the ANRAD, but they're really busy right now. So I don't know if that person would be able to go out there. I kind of recommended maybe having someone
Well,
else.
until if we're holding them up, they gotta come help us unhold them.
Right? I don't know if they have any
I agree, Ed.
previous photos that the wetland scientists had. I mean, I think if they could give us some additional information.
Do we have all the data from the wetland scientists?
Well, no, what I have,
Okay.
so I have a delineation report. I mean, it's 4 pages, but there's no forms or
We
anything.
need the background information, number one.
No, I know.
Number two, 4 and 5 should not be released until we're satisfied that they're not involved in a wetland.
Well, that's what Becky and I thought. That's
That's
why
our job.
that's why we brought it to you guys.
But our job is not to go out there and delineate the wetland.
Right. Preaching to the choir.
Aren't they doing an ANRAD?
They are, but
She hasn't got it yet.
Before we have the ANRAD, should we be approving any construction? I think not.
No.
So that's not us holding them up.
All right, you got your decision. We all agree on that?
Right.
Okay. But anything else?
well, I mean, if they want to give us some additional information, we can look at it, but for 4 and 5, no?
We gotta do the ANRAD.
We don't know that there wasn't a wetland sitting right here.
No, I know.
You know, so that's the problem.
Actually, why isn't there an enforcement order on them for clearing lots 4 and 5 before any permission was given? Regardless of the fact that they're A&R lots. There could very well have been a wetland in there.
I don't know if we're at enforcement order. We gave the cease and desist. I think if they don't cease and desist at this point,
Right.
Do we have pictures of the site right now so that we know whether they do any more work on it?
no, but we can get those.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me that we have to get some kind of a baseline as quickly as possible.
Right.
So that we know exactly what the conditions of the site are, so if there are any changes, we can point them out. And I really think that we need to have a cease and desist for both lots 4 and 5 until we clarify the picture about whether there's any wetlands involved.
We gave them a cease and desist.
We got a cease and desist on all of it.
And in my letter too, I reminded them
But we have
about,
to know what the conditions are, because from what Becky's saying, they're liable to just move right ahead anyway.
Well, they'd have to,
so in my letter, I reminded them about,
building inspectors across the hall from her, so.
right, I already told them that I wouldn't be able to sign off on any.
After the meeting, I'll explain something to you.
So I did remind them about their requirement to go to Board of Selectmen for the forest harvesting. I mean, I contacted them right away when we got the
Yeah.
forest cutting plan to tell them that.
But they
My
haven't gone to
understanding,
Board
they
of Selectmen
contacted
yet.
today. They did contact them today to start that process.
But
so
they've
you
already
know.
done the cutting.
No, they don't think they started their forest
No.
cutting plan
No, the
yet.
forest cutting plan's
But I
in
can't,
order.
I don't
They
know that
haven't
they
done
didn't
anything.
start it either. I don't know.
Well,
don't know.
when we
Go back
went
there.
out there was no equipment in the woods or
Yeah, but
anything.
that's usually 3 weeks ago.
4
No, it
weeks
wasn't,
ago.
actually. What? 4 days ago?
4 weeks ago? It was quite a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
No, we went out there after the last site visit, last Tuesday.
No.
Yes,
we
we
went out
did.
there, Halterman was just got back from
It
Paris.
was in France.
It was the beginning of August.
That's why
we
you
out
went,
there.
Ed.
I know that we went then, but we also, with forest cutting plan. but
Right, and then we drove by
But we
there
drove,
afterwards.
we'd have seen equipment or equipment tracks into the
Right,
woods. There
we
was no.
didn't see anything
there was
from
nothing,
the road.
yeah.
We didn't see anything from the road.
Yeah,
But agreed, it's
We were on
150,
site.
it's 150 feet in.
yeah.
Well, the cut is on the other side of the hill too.
Yeah. It's a long ways away.
Right, there could have been, their staging area is here, and there was nothing here, so.
I'll call the state, they'll get at them. That's it, that's their land.
Who's the construction team? Or the construction company?
There was somebody copied on this email. I didn't know until today. It must have been the person who was copied on the email. I didn't print the email. I
But it's
just
not
got it
someone
before I come
familiar to
here.
you.
No, it was not familiar to me.
So where are we on this?
All right, we're done on this, right?
Right, they have a cease and
Steve just
desist.
asked where we are, Ed.
What's the next step?
Unless they
We're waiting for
wanna
them.
give us additional
Yeah.
information to help
We're waiting for an
support
answer.
their case, we can't do anything.
Yeah.
So they can give us additional information.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second on that?
Are we working on our,
Not tonight,
That
no.
was the next meeting.
oh, the next meeting, okay.
There's a second.
In that case, I'll second your motion then.
All in favor?
All right. All opposed?